radio. Hello. Welcome to the 2023 first show of the THC Show, or first show of the year for the THC Show. Kind of happy to be shedding last year, I think. We had a lot of issues with respect to last year. On the show today, we're going to have 8 out of 10 Glenn, as always, help us out with the 420 session and beyond. We'll have Adam from the Mad Hatter here to discuss a few things that have happened with him recently, and that are parallel sort of with what's happening to us with the CSP and the charges to do with that. We'll visit the CSP Weedabago and talk a little bit about the out-of-town CSPs that are going on in London and Halifax. I guess we shouldn't feel all that singled out by Health Canada in not getting our licenses yet. It was 2 years ago, last December, that Health Canada, Mr. Benoit Seguin, apologized for having taken so long in trying to get licenses for us to continue to do what we had been doing already for 3.5 or more years to that point. Mr. Seguin said that he would likely have those licenses figured out by early January 2 years ago. But in the last 6 months, or the first 6 months of last year, Health Canada revoked 732 applications by people to be able to produce cannabis for themselves for medical purposes. And that's a drastic uptick from what was going on the year before. In the entire year before, there was only 227 revocations of applications, and the year prior to that there was only 154 in all of 2020. Health Canada is getting very good at refusing to allow people to grow cannabis. It's quite insane, really. I mean, what business is it of theirs? They say it's about public health and safety, because I don't know of any public health situation that has arisen from people that were growing plants with a license to do so for medical purposes. It's all just a big smokescreen. Their real concern is that cannabis is going to be diverted into the illegal marketplace, and that's going to hurt the sales of the legal cannabis. Well, it's going to do that, and it's going to do that whether or not they revoke licenses or not. All they're going to do is make criminals out of people. But the underground marketplace is thriving. They're producing plenty of cannabis, and there's a good number of Canadians, I would say in the vast majority of cannabis consumers, that do not and won't and don't want, or at least don't want to, purchase from these overpriced, overregulated, mostly irradiated cannabis stores. They've come up with a scam of legalization, and they call it legalization, but it's not. It's allowing all of the rich people to take over production. There's been a lot of mergers going on of different companies as different ones fall. There's been easy money available to people that are looking to get into this stuff. The people buying stocks and shares have provided a wealth of income for those companies, and those companies continue to lose the shareholders' money, and the stock prices continue to go down because it's a scam. It is not the legalization that we were fighting for all of these years. The stores in Ontario, for example, are complaining about the fact that they can get a license and it'll be right close to an illegal cannabis store, and that they can't compete with that store because their prices are lower and their cannabis is better in most cases. That's what was stated by a spokesperson for the Ontario retailers of cannabis. And of course it is, because the underground marketplace is the legacy marketplace. That is where the growers have been growing cannabis for decades, and they do a pretty good job of it. We had a thriving, illegal, I'll grant you, but a thriving cannabis industry going on before so-called legalization, and that the object of legalization was to wipe that thriving marketplace out of existence. And that in itself is a highly immoral thing to do when you consider that that affects many people that were growing cannabis and using it to feed their families and pay their rent, and supplying people with cannabis that weren't otherwise able to get the cannabis that they need. I mean, it's been a huge mess for a long time here. The whole illegal dispensary industry sprung up to fill the gaps that were left by a government that was criminalizing people for the production and the sale and the possession and use of cannabis, while at the same time allowing for doctors to provide permission to thousands and thousands of people, Canadians, that were then allowed to use cannabis because, oh my goodness, for some reason it's not so dangerous and not so bad, that in fact doctors are able to say that you can have this stuff. Where on the, like I say, on the other side of it, people were still being criminalized, chased down with the criminal law, penalized and having their lives ruined for something that was just responding to demand, period. There's a high demand for cannabis. It's an amazing commodity that helps in so many ways with so many things. People like it. That's the bottom line. People like cannabis. And we're living in a country that was supposed to be founded on principles of freedom and democracy, and that these people that are elected into office are public servants. Well, they have way gone past all of those labels into their own realm of authoritarianism on behalf of the corporate parasites that want to feed off of Canadians and exploit them as best they can. And so they've been involved in trying to curb that desire for cannabis and the desire to meet that need and that desire for cannabis. And it's been going on, believe it or not. I know those who watch the show are going to know this already because we've been talking about it for the past few weeks. It's been going on for 100 years. 100 years. It was January 1923 where the Liberal Party, with one member, Mr. Bellin, standing up, a backbencher, announcing there was a new drug in the schedule and sitting down with no debate, no conversation amongst our public servants about it. That was it. They were adding cannabis to the short list of prohibited substances. There was already opiates-based medicine that was being prohibited, and coca had been put on the list as cocaine. And then they just added cannabis without even talking about it. That is just outrageous. This is a free country. That's a plant. I don't care what the rumors are about how dangerous this plant is. You got to do your homework. You got to do some due diligence. You can't just willy-nilly make some plant illegal, especially when it's becoming popular, especially when for thousands of years before that, cannabis was a big part of the pharmacopoeia of many cultures globally. It was even a big part of the United States for a long time, both medicinally and industrially. And all of a sudden, it's not cannabis anymore. Now it's marijuana. It's not medicine anymore. It's some scourge of causing people to be violent and insane, and all the mayhem and chaos that was being caused by marijuana because of lies written in William Randolph Hearst's newspapers, and lies that suited the interests of the financial elite that felt that they needed to have some protection from this plant that produces so much biomass that can be used in so many positive ways. And so they went along with it all. All these big companies and big corporations that had patents on things that were having a hard time competing with this amazing plant, they all just went along with it. I wonder if they knew the damage that was going to result. Here in Canada, 100 years of giving criminal records to our citizens, of scaring parents about the behaviors of their children to the point of having families torn apart, putting people into cages because they were proficient at growing plants. All of that is a huge, huge blight on Canada and its otherwise fairly good reputation around the world. The cannabis file has been a huge black mark against Canada and many other countries around the world. We continue to struggle to overturn all of that. 100 years worth of struggle. We almost had it done in the 70s. But no, the soccer moms got organized and united and scared and said, what about the children? And of course, governments, on behalf of the people they really represent, more than willing to accept that excuse to continue a horrific prohibition or attempt to prohibit this beneficial plant to people. What about the children? Yeah, what about the children? Not a lot of children hurt by cannabis. A lot of children hurt by cannabis prohibition. A whole bunch of children hurt by that. Hurt in many, many ways as well. But not cannabis. One famous musician is known to be quoted as saying, I've never had a problem with marijuana. I've had a problem with police. One of the Rolling Stones said that. The damage that comes from cannabis is not from the plant itself. That's very difficult to do. There is a lot of cannabis being consumed and has been for a long time. It's been a multi-billion-dollar industry in just the province of British Columbia year after year. Several billion-dollar industry. All domestic, not much being sent out of British Columbia. A little bit, but not much. Billions of dollars worth of cannabis. What does that represent? It represents billions of doses of cannabis. And where was any of the harms being caused by that? Where was there was never hospital wards full of people that were harmed by cannabis that were displayed on the media. You never saw anything about harms to do with cannabis. You saw some stereotypes and some stigmatization and some fears and some lies, but you never touted out any victims. What they would tout out over the last number of decades is the stashes that they would find. They would lay out pounds of cannabis on the table there and say, look what we found here. Well, if they hadn't found it, it wouldn't have hurt nobody. And having found it, it didn't help anything to do with what they were trying to do. That table full of weed that they would display like that was like a teacup full of water that they captured coming over Niagara Falls. Like as if that's going to do anything. What it does do is it takes tax dollars, it puts it into the pockets of people that are involved with prohibition and enforcing the laws. Spend a lot of that. They spent a whole whack of billions of dollars here in Canada over these last 100 years to try to prevent people from getting access to cannabis. And what did that get them? It got them an underground marketplace that was thriving. Multi-billion-dollar industry, all underground, unlicensed, illegal, criminal. All sorts of groups and associations gathering together to supply people because the money was good. You got motorcycle enthusiasts, all tattied up and big boys and, tough as nails, and they're driving around delivering medicinal herbs to people. Because of the money. But what a ludicrous situation that was. And still is. Hats off to those boys that did all the heavy lifting for us over the last number of decades. But somebody was going to do it. Because that's what happens when you make stupid laws that can't be enforced. You are going to guarantee that there are going to be organized groups doing whatever it takes to satisfy the demand and take the money that will result from it. It guarantees that there is going to be our young people, our Canadian young people, lured in to that drug trade. And that drug trade, by nature, can be very dangerous. There's large money at stake. There's territories to worry about. There's all kinds of things to worry about. This attempt to prohibit cannabis has corrupted our entire justice system. It's put people at odds with police and governments. It's caused great disrespect for those institutions. That comes at a great cost. There have been many lives lost as a result of this war on drugs. War on drugs. People use drugs. People look to use drugs because people have problems. People want excitement. They want whatever they can't have as well. It doesn't just matter that cannabis is actually a fun thing to use and the euphoria is really enjoyable for people and it's got medicinal values. It can help people sleep. It helps with all kinds of different health issues. It doesn't even matter about that. Hell, that stuff could be horrible and dangerous. And people would still flock to it if the government says you can't. We got that situation going on here with the opioids. 4:19, I got one more minute. Drug policy has resulted in an underground drug trade that is rampant in the downtown east side of Vancouver and many other communities right across Canada. And that rampant drug trade has resulted in people being addicted to these opioid drugs and not be able to get off them. And all of that has resulted in devastation of families, human lives, very dangerous organized criminal groups. I mean, the more dangerous a substance is, the more you need to regulate it in a way that stops short of it having an underground marketplace. And that's what should have happened with the opioids and those other street drugs that people are taking. But there needed to be regulation of those things. They needed to be available with regulations that make sense for people, that falls short of being over-regulated to the point of an underground marketplace. And yet that's not what's happened. Despite years and years of people understanding the unintended consequences of prohibition, it still rages on. In any case, it's 4:20. Yeah, that's a great time of day. Every day, thankfully. Glenn Wells is here. Come on in, sir. I haven't seen you since last year.
I know. I haven't seen you since last year either.
Wow. Doesn't seem that long.
I know. Almost seems like a week.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's not true. I mean, on this show, we haven't seen each other, but we did see each other this morning.
Yes, we did. Yes. And that was interesting, too.
Because we had court this morning, or so we were told. In our last court date,
So what happened with
the 10th appearance on the charges of selling without a license here with the Cannabis Substitution Program and the Healing Wave. At the 10th appearance, the judge clearly said, be back here at 9:30 on January 3rd. We're setting a date for what we've decided will be a charter challenge on this. We're not going to let the judge decide on what he thinks the facts are without us being able to present them properly. Mm-hmm. We are going to bring our witnesses. We are going to bring all of the different pieces of evidence that we have that back up what we're doing here. And we're going to do it right. And they'll have a hard time justifying the Cannabis Act when we're done. But that's supposed to be happening. And you know, I've mentioned before during the first 10 appearances about how this is outrageous and absurd, and that the federal crown should withdraw those charges. Well,
I agree.
I'm putting the federal crown on notice that your time is come and gone. Someone messaged me and said there's a credible source saying they're going to drop the charges. Well, no, they're not. And I don't care if they do, they can't. Because I'm not going to allow it. They've provided me with standing by charging me, and we are going to take them to court. And make no mistake, it is federal government and the federal crown that are on trial here. And they are going to be found to have been delinquent to the point of criminality in not doing their duty, in providing license and support for what is well proven to be the most important and most valuable harm reduction strategy that there is in this public health emergency. And we'll see if they think they can prove any differently.
Okay, now if they drop the charges, you win. And that means then they're not going to come back and do it again.
I'm still taking them to court. We're going to challenge the charter on this.
Yeah.
The drop charges are not enough. It's also Health Canada that's on trial here, not just the federal crown. The federal crown is way out of line to be trying to punish us for saving lives and responding to a public health emergency and proving it day after day for nearly 6 years. I mean, they have certainly not done their due diligence. We'll show them what a little bit of due diligence looks like in court as we present what is our journey to this point in all of this, and why we are absolutely justified in what we're doing. In fact, beyond justification, we can't stop what we're doing because we don't have a piece of paper with a signature on it. We've got hundreds of people that have come to rely on us, that we've come to know personally, that are going to be pushed back out, depressed and horrified that their source is now gone. And what do they do now when they're feeling the way that they feel?
We heard some of those cries.
We heard some of those cries. We know what that's all about. I could not, in any kind of conscience, if I've got any type of an ethical being inside of me, I can't turn my back on those people because the government is either stupid or corrupt.
Yeah.
It's got to be one of those two things. Crazy, man.
But even if they did drop the charges, that's even quicker than a piece of paper that you might get. Because
I don't know what that would mean.
Well, I don't think they would come back and try to charge you again if they've already skied it once.
This is much bigger than that. This is much bigger than us just being able to continue to do what we're doing the way that we're doing it. Yeah, we've been put at risk. We've had numerous hardships. There's all kinds of trouble and problems that have resulted in us not having a license. For us and our clients, there's the lack of dignity, for example, of having a safe space to walk into and be treated like a human being.
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't be getting into the storefront with just a dismissal of charges. You'd have to have the piece of paper.
And it wouldn't allow for the people in Kelowna and in Penticton and in Calgary and in Winnipeg and in Halifax and in London and in Toronto and all those other places that are facing the same problem.
Yeah.
The problem is lack of reasonable, low barrier access to cannabis. If there was low barrier access...
Lack of treatment centers too, where we could be treating people with cannabis and not have to put them in the system and burden the system that's already breaking down already. Right? So there's another good positive thing about that.
There's so much that's wrong about all this.
You could be, withdrawing at home and high-dose edibles,
when I started being an activist, and I was an activist, I guess, before I quit my job, but, shortly after I quit my job and really... wrap my brain around what's going on here with all this. I started saying it, I've been saying it ever since, this is upside down, inside out, and backwards. And I had no idea to what degree that was true. But we are finding out just how upside down, backwards, and inside out this whole thing is.
Yeah.
Like I say, we deserve commendation.
Yeah.
I'm not pushing for it.
No.
I don't care.
You just want that statue.
No, I don't want a statue. People piss on my statue. I don't want a statue for it. Birds will shit on it.
The birds will have a place to land.
Yeah, well, there's always two sides. There's always more sides to every coin.
Right? Yeah. A tired bird could land on that new statue.
Happy to help you out, buddy. Why do you shit on my shoulder? I know, eh? I don't care. I don't care if we really don't get the recognition we deserve. The team of people that have been helping me through all of this and making me look good are the ones that really deserve the commendation. These are the heroes that have stepped forward to allow me to make a success out of the Cannabis Substitution Program. All the donators. Without donators, we have nothing. We're going to stand there and look at people and say, I wish I had some cannabis to give you. The donators made it all happen. All you wonderful people, oh my goodness, that have kept us going for all of this time and continue to do so. The team of people that have come and worked with me. There's been over 20 people that have worked with the Healing Wave and the Cannabis Substitution Program. And more than that, if we go right back to the beginning and count all of those volunteers at Vandu. I'm just talking about the people that came here and became part of the team that we've had on this block here for well over 2.5 years now. There's a whole lot of people that have really helped us get to where we are here, and I can't thank all those people enough. But none of those people cared about whether or not they got mentioned by their name. Nobody ever came to me and said, "Hey, I want promotion out of this," or "Hey, try to build my company out of this," or make sure you mention me on your show.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever said that to me.
No.
Because that's not what they care about. Well, maybe they're afraid that if they get mentioned on the show, they're going to get arrested, because that's a possibility too.
That's old thinking.
and some people, that's true of. They really don't want to be mentioned because they're afraid for their liberty and their possessions. But others, could use some promotion, and we do mention from time to time. I mean, every week probably I mention some of the ones that help us. I never mention all of them because I'm not good at that.
We're stoners. We're not down the list.
There's too many of them. and I really hate missing people. That really bothers me. If anybody was going to say, hey, you didn't say anything, that's what they would say maybe is, you tried to list off everybody, you forgot about me,
Yeah.
I'm sure that they don't mind some recognition.
I always end that with, if I've forgotten anybody, my apologies, right? I'm sorry if I didn't remember you, but thank you very much.
I've been doing this type of thing for a long time, and almost always you forget somebody.
Of course, yeah.
It just, I don't know why.
I find writing down things helps a lot better.
It does. Oh, yeah. You can get pretty good at it. You can almost not miss anybody, and sometimes maybe not.
It's there for later, too.
And I keep thinking I'm going to do a better job of assembling all of the donators over time and making a big list of them and making a big deal about it. I don't know. We'll see how things go with whether or not we're vindicated.
If you get legal, we could do
criminalized.
like a donators Christmas party or something, right?
Who knows?
That'd be great. That'd be great.
When we are continuing with this charter challenge, we are going to have some fundraisers.
Yep.
There's no question about that.
And we already know one that you mentioned.
And so, there's going to be lots of opportunity to bring people together and celebrate some things. And I believe in win-win, by the way. I don't like places where you just go and maybe you donate some money, you get nothing out of it. I think everybody that donates should get more out of it than what they donated. I think there's ways to do that. There's other donators that'll donate to the donators, or you can have a pool of stuff and everybody. So I believe in win-win. We're going to have fundraisers. Everybody's going to be a winner, And if it's like a raffle, we have had that just at the CSP recently. So not everybody wins, except as was pointed out during that time, just being able to support, a good cause is a win.
They're even going to do that Guinness World Book of Records thing and throw you some of 25% of that, aren't they?
Well, that's what they're talking about.
I believe it too.
I believe things when I see them.
Yeah. Well,
and I encourage all of that type of stuff. I don't want to put anybody on the hook for anything. I don't want to mention any names. There will be a time and place for that, and we will when it's the right thing to do. I
think that's cool. That'll definitely help.
I believe everybody that tells me everything, but I also understand that lots of things get in the way and stuff happens, and people mean well, and then stuff doesn't happen. We'll find out what it is right to talk about and what it isn't, down the road a little bit. Me, I'm obsessed with a few things. I'm obsessed with the fact that we're going to pass 100 years and we won't have solved the issue yet. And I really thought we could get that done.
And now we're even making more of it with Health Canada refusing up to 500 more licenses than they did the year before.
It's more than that, actually, because the year before, that's a whole year. They did 257. And only in the first 6 months
with 700
of this year, it's over 700.
Wow.
732 people that that took the effort to get a doctor to allow them to use cannabis, and they put that application into Health Canada, and Health Canada decided for these people that no, you can't.
Now this is a designated grower program.
It was
you
both.
did read that, right?
It's both.
Yeah, so
It's
most
both.
of the ones that they refused were designated growers. So.
Irrelevant.
Yeah.
Totally irrelevant.
Yeah.
These are sick people.
Yeah.
If you've got a doctor that's willing to put his reputation on the line, and in the environment that we're living in with respect to this continued stigmatization of cannabis, will put his name forward on your behalf to allow you to use what he has decided is an okay number for you. Health Canada thinks it's okay to say no to those people? What the hell does Health Canada know?
As if they know.
What the hell do they know?
They go to medical school.
They don't even get to see the patient.
No.
Now the person can appeal and get a lawyer at great expense to put forward your claim and explain why it is that you need a higher number than Health Canada thinks you should have. What the hell? They're just going to deny them. They're going to revoke your license.
Did you see what they...
You're smart enough to figure out that this person isn't sick enough to deserve to have this many plants produced for them, but you're not smart enough, Health Canada, to be able to find a number that would be reasonable to you? You're just going to say no to these people? They're not sick enough? How sick? They're sick, obviously. They've got a doctor on board. They're not sick enough to be able to get, that many plants. Well, how sick are they, in your opinion, Health Canada? Mm-hmm. You're in your diagnosis, and you're, following their case and understanding, like hell you do. You don't know nothing except you're serving the interests of a bunch of greedy parasites who are worried that they're not going to be able to rip off the Canadian public for as much money as they would otherwise if there's other competing cannabis available, and maybe it's coming from medical growers. So let's shut that tap off, eh? Mm-hmm. You're never going to catch the water from the Niagara Falls and stop it. Ever. Period. It's a plant. It grows. Look what happens in Mexico, for example. Look what happens with other commodities, things that are so illegal that you will get executed. They'll cut your head off for it. Mm-hmm. And it's still available for those that want to get it, because there's always somebody that's willing to risk whatever it is to make the big money that's going to happen. Government's role is not to stifle business. It's not to tell their citizens they can't use what they want to use. It's to oversee what goes on, try to make it as safe as they can, regulate it with information that allows human beings to make good choices for themselves. And if their behavior becomes detrimental to society in some way, that they're harming other people, then there's a role for government to play in that. But to be the big brother or the nanny that says, well, you can have alcohol and cigarettes, but you can't have weed, who the hell are they to be making those choices? And what do those choices result in the ensuing costs to those people and our society, to be denied access to what would be a way more reasonable product to be consuming than alcohol and cigarettes and the things that you're allowed to have by these public authoritarian servants that we have here.
Now, that article said that Health Canada thinks that they have the information that a Canadian person only needs 2.1 grams per day, whereas the applications have been asking for 37. Now, let's hold on.
Unless you buy it from the government store, you can have 30 grams a day.
Hold on. Now, let's see how Canada enforce that and say, well, the next person that walks into a government store can only buy 2.1 grams, because that's what we think it is, but they're not fucking doing that.
No, and that's why I tried to interrupt you. It was so rudely interrupted you there. I didn't know what you were going to say, but I knew it came to my mind right away. You can buy 30 grams a day at the government store of non-medical, irradiated cannabis that you shouldn't probably consume.
But us medical people only are allowed to, and it's smoked cannabis. They're not allowing for edibles, for juicing, for anything else. They just say,
how many edibles can you make out of 2.1 grams a day?
Not much, man. Not much, right? That's what I'm saying. It's so fucked up.
It is so fucked up. I got a couple of things here. So Bricks Carlisle was nice enough to send me what he found to do with irradiated cannabis.
Yeah.
See if I can bring
what they do here. Okay.
Well, and I knew it anyway. I knew it just because I'd had a good look at it myself. But irradiated cannabis can't be good for you.
No. Well, anything. Our food is.
Okay, so that's one of his things, but it's not the right thing. So I got to go to the other thing. That's all right. I don't know.
While you're doing that, I'll smoke another joint.
Sure. It's still the 420 movement.
It is.
Session. We used to have moments, now we have sessions.
Now you got to find him.
You know, I gotta.
He's watching. Send him the link.
I know. He mostly watches after the fact.
Yeah, well, I know he was watching. He said, "Oh, good afternoon."
Oh, did he?
On the comments there. He found it today.
Darn it! Me and technology don't get along very well.
Well, you have a search up there, don't you? You just put his name there.
I'm just going to tell you. The science is in. That irradiating cannabis destroys much of its medical value. And yet this is what the government had decided was the right thing to do. Of course, they call their cannabis non-medical, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they're killing the majority of the medical value of the plant by running it under irradiation. Because it's non-medical.
Because
maybe it'll still
get... wasn't good for you, so it can't be medical. They can't allow it to be medical. Because it would be good for you.
Absolute insanity. So we knew it too. I mean, we looked at cannabis under a microscope back in the day. Every time somebody would send in a sample to the show there, the Pot TV show, the contest we called it, and they would send in samples of cannabis, and we would not me. I thought it was a panel of experts. It was Greg Williams. I love your brother. I hope you're really getting everybody high up there. and Kirk Tusaw, gone back to the dark side. Mark Emery and Chris Bennett. Those guys would sit around and they would test the samples that were sent in. It was genius, you know. But one day somebody sent in some weed that wasn't like any other weed we had seen. Under the microscope, what was always a beautiful forest of gleaming, crystally resin glands sitting on top of trichomes and looking so wonderful.
Sorry, he posted the article on the page. I can see it right there. What happened?
So it's there for you in the chat. Have a look at that, and you know what we're talking about here. And here comes this one, and that beautiful forest of trichomes and resin glands had been completely decimated.
Yep.
It looked like a war zone. There was little shriveled up bits of this and that laying all over a wasteland of what was there. And nobody would even try to smoke that, and I don't blame them. That's horrible what they think it's okay to do, because they're gonna kill the microbes. Yeah, gotta kill those microbes. Can't have microbes.
And now in all
because
fairness,
we all know that weed was always bad because of the microbes. That was big news. We had Bonnie Henry up there every day before legalization telling us all about the people that were dying from the microbes. Oh no, I guess that's not true. Maybe that was
it.
That was a nightmare that I had.
That was our Attorney General.
Somebody was up there.
Yes, that was the guy.
Nobody's ever been harmed by microbes on cannabis. Another illusion and smokescreen being put up by Health Canada to try to not let cannabis be medical. Damn it, they just can't stand it.
Now we know
cannabis
that's
is
not
medical.
with all medical or marijuana in those stores, because we know some people who grow in completely white rooms that have no access to microbes and stuff like that, right?
My good friend Patrick Redbeard there, he tells me that he's not irradiating anything, and you don't have to, and not everybody does. So that's great news. Yeah. Still got to worry about the microbe count though. Yeah. But he, as you were mentioning, he gets his microbe count down by having an extremely clean room, which is fine, great, 100%. Why not have clean rooms? Of course, we never had much problem with rooms that weren't completely clean.
No, if you did, then you didn't get a product out.
Maybe medical users that had really serious issues had to be careful about what cannabis they were combusting and inhaling.
Yeah, but we have 100 years.
I think that's true. I would believe that there are some people who are just so sick, so sensitive to what's going in and out of them, that they needed to worry about that.
Yeah.
And that if they were getting cannabis that wasn't properly flushed, sometimes it burns black and the hard ash at the end there, and it sparks a little bit. Yeah, that weed wasn't flushed properly.
Yeah.
Might not be a great idea to smoke it, but I never knew anybody that was actually harmed by that. You don't like it, it's not properly flushed weed. You usually still smoked it or something, I don't know. Sometimes you didn't if it was so bad. But nobody ever got harmed by it. I never heard of anybody getting harmed by it. But I'm qualifying that by saying I do believe that some people probably could have been, or possibly could have been harmed by that if they had those types of sensitive immune systems and what have you.
Yeah. But
so those people needed to be careful. But that's not the general public.
No, that's not the general public.
It's not the millions of people that drove the multi-billion-dollar industry in British Columbia of cannabis production and consumption. Those people were never harmed, and I never heard of any medical people harmed by the other either, although I heard rumor of such things, never really met anybody. I believe you're out there. I believe it's true. And it's okay. It's okay. I'm not saying there's a problem with that.
No.
I mean, people that have sensitive systems, they've got to be careful about all kinds of different things that they put into their body or they become exposed to. And I'm pretty sure that non-properly flushed cannabis would be in that group of things that could harm people, and probably has,
But as we know that if it's not properly flushed, it's going to burn black. So if you're one of those people and it's not burning properly, put it out.
So here's my point.
Right?
For those people,
you
be careful.
Just be careful.
Be careful.
Watch what you're smoking.
So how do you be careful? You don't know what's out there. You're buying it off of some guy under his briefcase. What's going on? Or somebody's coming to you're going to some guy's basement suite or something like that, or maybe who knows, right? But what you really need to have, if Health Canada really cared about anyone that just might be harmed by some aspects of cannabis, they would ensure that you had a storefront to go into with things that were properly flushed, that had passed certain tests, but run by people who you knew you could trust.
Yeah.
All of that kind of stuff. That's what we do as human beings in an environment like this. We look after those that are less able to look after themselves by having special provisions for them.
Yeah.
Now, anybody can walk into a store like that and use those services. Of course they could. If you're a perfectly healthy person, but you're one of those people that thinks you're sick all the time, or maybe you think you're healthy and you are, but you want to stay that way. So you want really good, properly flushed cannabis.
Yeah.
Anybody could go into that store, but that store is there specifically to make sure that those vulnerable people in our society have what they need. And here, what has the government done? You have to prove, like we're going back a few decades now, but even today, but less so, you had to prove you were really sick before they would let you get out of that black marketplace.
Yes. Yeah.
And most people wouldn't try to qualify because it was an evil government that would put you in jail, for God's sakes, for your choices. And if it ever got out into your community, well, your church and the business you work for and your family, they'd all, put labels on you.
Was that a Section 56 or something?
Yeah, you could get a Section 56 exemption, and that's what happened with these first few people there that got those things. But what about the thousands and thousands of people that wouldn't dare try to qualify because they're afraid, justifiably so, of a corrupt government that could put them in jail and do all the horrible things that they did to people using cannabis? What about them? What about all the people that just weren't sick enough? Mm-hmm. Or at least they couldn't prove it. They think they're sick enough that they want to use some cannabis, but the government decides, you're not sick enough. What about all those? Those people get tossed under the bus. What for? For what? Who are they protecting? Who are they supposed to be protecting?
They think they're going to be selling the weed to legal people.
They think they're supposed to be. I think they're supposed to be protecting all those people that are being left unprotected because of a government who's still trying to hide from their own criminality with making cannabis illegal. That was a criminal offense, and a big one, against the citizens of this planet and Canada.
100 years.
100 years of it.
100 years.
They're still trying to hide from that responsibility.
Yeah.
They've had to shed a piece of clothing every time their science proved them wrong.
Yeah.
They're all naked. The emperor wears no clothes here in Canada because they've lost them all because of the lies that they've told. Mm-hmm. And here we are, and the reason that they're so naked is because we all know now. As long as they can hide their nakedness by fooling us all through lies in the media or just not letting the truth out or
distraction.
So all the things that they do, coming up with science that's not science, all of that kind of stuff, then they could maybe not look so naked in public. But look at them now. There's hundreds of stores across Canada with a big sign that says, "Get your cannabis here." Hundreds of them. I'm not really all that big a fan of those stores, as you know, because they're selling it too high, but that's because of the government making them do that. They don't want to do that.
No.
They want to go out there and get some good cannabis that's better than the store beside them and cheaper than the store on the other side of them and have customers come in and buy it because they got the best cannabis at the best prices. But they can't.
No.
They're stuck with pricing schemes from our corrupt government instead. Mm-hmm. So...
And when they can't get rid of it, it goes out the back door.
And speaking of that, you know that they're so worried about all these, medical applications for growing because some of that minute amount of cannabis might end up diverted into the neighbor's place where they won't go to the government store now.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, these licensed producers in Canada have overproduced something fierce.
I know.
They have got way more cannabis than they're able to provide to, get out to people before the expiry date or whatever. They'll probably just turn all that into concentrates and still make a whack of money on it. I'm not sure what they're going to do. But no, they're destroying a bunch of it, and they're making people destroy a bunch of it. Meanwhile, on the other, I don't know how many meanwhiles we could have here. Maybe it's Stephen Colbert here. Meanwhile, we're running this program where we could really use some help.
Yeah.
Yeah,
some of that weed.
Yeah, some of that weed would come in very handy here.
Yeah.
To rescue our brothers and sisters and children from addiction that was caused by government policy and bad doctors prescribing opioids when they should have been prescribing cannabis, we could really, really help a whole bunch more people if we were allowed to do so.
Okay, but I hate to be the devil's advocate here.
Always,
but
please.
you just said it's non-medical weed that they have. So
True.
how it could be a bit of a medical benefit to the people that you're helping if it's non-medical weed?
That's a great point.
Gonna say
I
that,
want
right?
I want some of Redbeard's leftovers that he has to destroy.
Yes.
And that is a really good point, because we have had these discussions with Health Canada and amongst my lawyers and ourselves about whether or not we would accept LP weed into the program here. And I've always said that if that happened, we would have that kept separate, and we would make sure people understood that that's where it was coming from, and we would run a pilot research project into the effects and the lack of effects with respect to that.
Because I don't think the government weed would help somebody with their withdrawals. If it's non-medical weed and it's being irradiated and it looks as barren as you've seen, I can't see.
I can't tell you the science on that.
No.
I can't tell you whether you take some of that government weed and mix it into brownies and make an edible out of it. If that is going to be a potent edible, we need to do that science and see if irradiated cannabis is going to be able to make potent edibles or not. That's a good point. Maybe it doesn't. I'm not sure if that devastated wasteland of a.
So you'd have to tell them you would want the leftovers of non-irradiated weed, because then that would have more of a benefit.
If they could separate that out for me, or maybe we could do our own little quick scope on that stuff. We would scope it.
I'm sure they know who's irradiating and who's not, right?
Yeah, and we could probably figure that out too. With our own quick checks on things, we could check and see if the trichomes and the resin glands are intact or not. All of
That's
that.
just a microscope.
These are not hard problems.
My phone would do that if we could just look at it with the phone nowadays. Mine's got 100 times zoom, so you definitely should look at weed and see this
right in there and see what those resin glands look like.
You don't need a bunch of special equipment or anything.
Right. It's the government has made the whole weed thing such a complicated issue. They got put together panels of people, and they got to have all these stakeholders and experts and scientists and all the rest of it. They are spending just a crap ton of money to try to do what? I mean, a little bit of, the best research is on the actual human results, the lived experience of the people. And there's a whole bunch of that. Those billions of doses of cannabis that have been consumed in Canada over the last number of decades are people's history. And they can simply investigate, ask for people's testimony on those sorts of things, and they wouldn't even need to do too much of that, because it's never been a problem. We've never had hospital wards full of people. I think I dropped my joint again.
Oh yeah, I think it's over here somewhere. I saw it fly.
There it is.
I saw it fly.
But that's a good thing. It's a great thing. What is this? A broken piece of something? Oh yeah,
that's a straw.
No, that was a piece of plastic container there.
All right.
We go through quite a bit of those. But no, actually, you brought me this joint here.
Yeah.
Lizard, I think it's called.
Lizard.
Lizard.
Yeah, I like it. It's really good. I've never heard that name before. It was it was nice.
Smoking lizards.
I like to bring people different stuff, right?
Smoking lizards,
Well, it almost made me think of the Cheech and Chong part with Sergeant Sadeko, but that was an iguana.
Sadeko.
Yeah, Sadeko. Sergeant Sadeko, where he was smoking the weed and it turned him into an iguana.
Hey, Bricks, I know you're watching. Did I ever tell you how much... Excuse me. Good lizard there. How Daryl Pleckus looks exactly like Stacy Keach doing his Sergeant Stadenko. He'd wear the same suit for days and days. And then scheduled to do a major debate in Fraser Valley University against Norm Stamper, the ex-police chief from Seattle, who became a big advocate of cannabis and an advocate of ending cannabis prohibition. And he went there to debate Daryl Pleckus. Daryl Pleckus was the RCMP shill that spoke on behalf of things cannabis when it came to it. And what a farce of a debate that was. I've mentioned it a few times before.
It was a setup, was it?
Well, no, it's just that Daryl Pleckus was a drunk.
Yeah.
And if he wasn't, he sure came off as one. He looked exactly like a drunk. He looked like Stacy Keach wearing a little bit of an oversized suit that he hadn't changed in days and days. It was clear as could be that he had slept in that suit for a while. And he got up there and he had nothing. Norm Stampers, in a turtleneck, sharp, recently cut hair. Well, I mean, he looked like a real high-performing human being, this guy. And he was articulate, and he just dragged Daryl Pleckus right all around the whole stage there. Pleckus had nothing.
Would have been fun.
So at one point, the comment is made about, the fact that people are using this medicinally.
Yeah.
And Daryl Pleckus says, "Oh, hang on a minute. We can't be jumping to any conclusions. The jury is still out on that, and until we know for sure, we don't want to be doing anything drastic." Well, the drastic thing that he was referring about doing was stop arresting people for weed, man.
Yeah.
And I couldn't take it anymore at that point. I mean, I was there filming this for Pot TV, and you're not supposed to say nothing.
Nope.
You're not supposed to yell at the stage. But I mean, it welled up inside of me, and I just yelled, and I said, "So, good idea. Let's just keep putting people into cages until we're sure, eh?" Wow.
Did you get in trouble?
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't get in trouble. But,
right.
Probably I shouldn't have.
It was
In
good
fact,
fun.
I didn't do a lot of filming for Pot TV after that, so. And I don't think that had anything to do with it. I had many other things I was doing around the studio and the show and the store there. But, I just happened to get, I wasn't like a regular photographer or filmographer for Pot TV. A relatively small organization back in the day, and many of us that were there on a regular basis got tasked with doing different things. And that night, to go out into the Fraser Valley, to the Fraser Valley University out there, the job fell to me to point the camera at what was going on there. So
I point the camera at you every week.
You do. You got your helper there.
Yeah, I got the stand.
Without that, I'm telling you, you got to hold steady, man.
Yeah.
You got to hold steady. You can't be like, "Hey, well, yeah, let's just keep putting them in cages until we're sure." Eh? Meanwhile, the camera's all going like that. So, I chased him down too. And, he was, when it was all over, he got off the stage and went quickly downstairs. I remember being in the basement of this little theater that they had there, and chasing him down and trying to get him to answer questions that he wanted no part of. I tried to ask him also on social media. He became Speaker of the House here not that long ago.
Yeah, he got some guy fired.
Well, he exposed quite the scam that was going on in our little legislature here. That the people that work there, they got pretty good deal on yours and my dollar. They can go and spend a lot of money on a lot of things that they probably don't deserve, and we probably wouldn't be okay with if we knew that our hard-earned tax dollars were being used for these people to have
a wood splitter.
A wood splitter.
A wood splitter.
Go on holiday and all new luggage.
Yeah.
And the wife is there and she gets a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And the alcohol is what got me. That there was just so much alcohol flowing, and I know that there is. Parliament is an alcohol-based place.
Yeah.
They have these events put on all day long in Ottawa and other legislatures across Canada. And the booze is all a big part of all of those meetings.
Yeah.
The ministers and their assistants have closets full of alcohol, and the people that Daryl was blowing the whistle on, they've been taking a fair bit of that home. And I'm sure they're not the only ones. I mean, somebody's got to get rid of that stuff that's already opened. I mean, you can't have open bottles when you start your next event. It's got to be full bottles. So good on the public servants in our legislatures for making sure that stuff doesn't go to waste.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, you can't have an open bottle in a car, so if it's open at the office.
Who knows how they get away with that? I don't know how they get away with this stuff. These people are above the law,
Yeah.
and they know how to get away with stuff, and they've been playing us for a long time. Our system is broken. We need to reset it. We need a new understanding of what it is to be a free person, to be a sovereign individual that gets to make your choices without interference from anybody unless you're harming other people. You don't get to do that. And it's not just the government, it's your neighbor, it's the guy who saw it, it's anybody that's around you. If you're hurting somebody else, you can expect to be stopped from doing that because that's not okay.
It's not okay, no.
And that's just the way it is in this world. But these public servants that think they can, steal from us the way that they do, and not in all cases. I'm sure there's honorable public servants out there, but it's not the norm. The norm is you're in a club now. You got access to all of this stuff. You get a stipend. You get to have all these things provided for you, and you use it. And you're in a department that's given this much of a budget. You use it. There's no incentive to doing such a good job that you only use a portion of the money that you were allocated for that job.
Yeah.
We need a different system. We need a system where the currency is respect from the public. The currency is the integrity that a person feels and the value that they feel that they are to a society when they're doing the right thing. We need people that are going to do the right thing and not people that are going to sell out to the corporate parasites that want to and have for millennia been exploiting us. You know, we are just chattel to them. We consume and produce for their benefit. And they live in ivory towers and fly in personal jets and live a life that we can only get glimpses of. You know, and we can't dream of having it because we're never getting there where these people are. You know, you got to get part of a pyramid scheme or a Ponzi scheme for that, and that don't work for the majority of people. Unless you started it, you're probably not going to get the riches that they promise you. You know, and those things, by the way, are alive and well in Canada. But that's a whole other topic that a lot of people, you know, Amway. Nothing but a pyramid scheme. You know, the salespeople are the customers. That's how that works for there, folks. In India, they're being prosecuted as being a pyramid scheme.
Wow.
They've had a lot of assets seized, and there's a lot of people on trial over there.
Wow.
And Canada allows for all of that stuff as well. And this whole legalization of Canada is much like that. It is just a scam. They've gotten a whole bunch of people to buy shares in a dream that this whole cannabis market is going to continue to make thousands and thousands of dollars per pound of cannabis that's put out there.
Before it was illegal.
Illegal, yeah. You know, bling. For those people that were selling cannabis before it was legal and were moving a fair bit of it, lots of money involved. Because thousands of dollars per pound. At $10 a gram, that's $4,480 for 1 pound of this plant material that can be grown as easily and with better success than just about any other crop. It produces more biomass per cubic meter than just about anything that a farmer would bring to market. Hell, they make money on strawberries. You know, now sure, they're $6.99 a pound. That's expensive.
And that plant will help the environment too. So it's way better than strawberries do.
Yeah. So it's all just a big scam that we're involved with here, and I'm ashamed to have it going on in Canada. Yeah. Canada needed to legalize the way that we told them to do it. They came and asked us. It's not like we didn't have an opinion on it. We've been putting on public markets of cannabis for all years and years and years. We knew what was right and wrong in that marketplace and what regulations, minimal regulations should be involved in that. They came and asked representatives of our cannabis consumer or cannabis community, and then they did the exact opposite pretty much of what we told them that they should be doing.
Because they think they know better.
No, because it's about money.
No, wow.
It's all about money.
Yeah.
For one thing, they hate us and always have. We're a thorn in their side for doing all the other things that they do that they want cannabis illegal for. So they've always hated us. So if they're going to have to capitulate, which we forced them into, we put them in a position where Trudeau could win an election from a less than even opposition status, a decimated party, on a platform of legalizing for regular people cannabis, and got a majority government out of it. So we had pushed that agenda. That's why that happened.
Yeah.
That was the cannabis activists across Canada that had put out the truth about cannabis, and people understood that prohibition was not justified and it was costing us a huge amount. So let's end it. That's what the public voted for.
Yeah. They
didn't vote for continuing the high prices of cannabis and excluding the people that really need it on the low end.
Yeah.
They didn't vote for keeping the price high so that the very people that were involved in prohibiting cannabis, that are now CEOs and running companies and invested in cannabis, that they're going to get rich out of this. That's not what we wanted to legalize for. We didn't legalize it so that all of our friends and people that we've been trusting and relying on to be providing cannabis to the communities for all of this time, we're going to still be criminals. We're going to not be allowed into the new legal marketplace and not want to go there anyway, most of them. Some of them have, because there's no option for them. They had become exposed as you know what they were as providers of cannabis, and they hoped that there was a path to some better world, you know, going on with legalization. You can't blame them.
No.
You know, and I can't blame the people that didn't. I can't blame the people that decided, I'm not going to take part in this nasty scheme, this cartel that Trudeau's setting up. I've got my customers all set up.
Yeah.
I'm going to continue to do what I've been doing for all of this time that works for me, and I'm not about to stop just because you're going to tell me that I'm illegal now, because I've been illegal since before legalization. So what's changed in that?
Yeah.
The only thing that changed in that was that they decided that they could now give out like $6.5 million fines to dispensaries that were helping people for medical access, and trying to scare everybody as best they could into not opening up a little basement shop or something.
What happened this morning with court? You started off with that, but we didn't. So today was the day we were supposed to be there. What did they say?
I talked about how, in my mind, the prosecution has now lost their opportunity to withdraw these charges. We're going to go against them in court now.
So when you got
But today was supposed to be the day to set the date. It was supposed to be on the 10th appearance, but because of the monumental winter event that we had here, the snow and the ice and all the rest of it, they put it off until January 3rd, and that's what the judge said, come back on January 3rd. And we did. And we got in there, and I wasn't 100% sure about which courtroom it was going to be in. They've got a couple that can facilitate the setting of a date. And so I asked the sheriff, what courtroom am I in? He said, well, you'll have to go to the registry. He said, all it says here is PMT. I said, what does that mean? He says, I don't know.
TMP.
TMP.
Temporary bank, almost.
Yeah, almost like temporary. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm a little dyslexic.
Okay.
But so he said he didn't know. Can you imagine? You're a sheriff. You're working there. You're dealing with people all day long, and looking at all these, and you don't know what that means on there for some what? They shouldn't be screening people to get into courthouse. You know the guy behind us that was coming to support us?
Yeah.
That he decided, I'm done. I'm not, because they were going through his wallet.
Oh, really? Eh?
And he said, why are you going through my wallet? He said, well, because they have knives made out of cards these days.
Oh, wow.
He says, he says, I'm 67 years old. I've never been in trouble in my life. Do I look to you like somebody that's going to be stabbing somebody with a card knife? They didn't go through my wallet. I'm a dangerous felon. I mean, why wouldn't they go through my wallet?
Yeah.
And why would they go through anybody's wallet? Why do they have to search you at all? Do we have a real problem here in Canada? Is that happening a lot before this all? Because I remember when you could walk into a courthouse and you could sit down in a courtroom and you could just observe what was going on there without having to feel like you're some sort of a criminal going through a metal detector and a wallet search and a pat down.
But there was some lady that just stabbed some lady in a court with a knife. So, you know, there are some people that ruined it for.
Okay, I'm okay for the metal detector then.
Yeah. That's probably what it was.
Reasonable stuff, but it wasn't reasonable to stop this fellow and search through his wallet.
Yeah.
I mean, this finger could take your eye out. You're going to cut my fingers off before I go in there?
It's a gun.
And Glenn's got a thumb that could knock you out.
Poke you in the eye.
No, it's too big for the eye. Maybe not.
Anyways, you gotta.
I know. So that's what's happened in court today. Is that we went to the registry. They said, okay, you're here, but it's not a courtroom. Here's a phone number and an ID number, and you can call in. I really needed to check with my lawyer first, and he said, don't do that. They won't let you in anyway. He was dealing with a crown that he said was nuts. Gotta be nuts.
Yeah.
And that that it was now. He said it was going to be next week. Well, it turns out that a couple hours later, I got a message from him, and it's now just for setting another date. This is all just about setting a date. We're going to January 27th.
Oh, just to set another date.
And to set a date, hopefully, for an actual charter challenge. And yes, that will likely be a virtual thing that I don't get to be included in.
Okay. Well, you'll get...
He'll tell me what they came up with. Why don't I get to? Why does it matter whether or not it matches their schedules and not mine?
Yeah.
I guess I'm the criminal here, although I thought I was innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
As an innocent, free citizen of Canada,
Yeah.
Why don't I get a seat at the table to decide what date we'll start this trial? How do they know that I don't have some wedding set up that I've got to go away out of town for on the date that they choose?
Your lawyer is supposed to know that.
Well, he never asked me.
He will.
He has not. He was supposed to go into it today and set a date without having asked me at all about if any dates suit me.
Okay.
You know, I know this is going to be probably a year down the road, so I guess I can make anything work, and I guess that's how they feel about it. But still, I'm not happy that I'm not included in these discussions. And you know, bringing that up again, I was told that there was a few things I was really focused on about what's going on. I named a couple of them. Well, there's another one, and that is the lies that they told about me. That the prosecutor, the federal crown, King Charles's representative on behalf of the king, got up before the judge on the 10th one and said, Mr. Magnuson is a greedy opportunist, and he needs to go into a cage for several months before he'll learn his lesson, and we've punished him properly for harming our society in such a terrible way. Okay, he didn't say all of that. But I believe she did say that I am a greedy opportunist, and that I'm a bad person, and that I deserve to have these charges, carry on against me, and that I should be punished for that. And I'm really upset about that. On what supporting evidence is there at all that I am some sort of a greedy opportunist? I'll tell you, I'm greedy for freedom for generations to come. I'm really greedy for that. I'm really obsessed with getting a large amount of freedom for the generations to come, because this oppression is too hard to live under, and it messes people's lives up, and it's really, really bad. And I'm an opportunist because as an activist, I will look for whatever opportunities I can find to try to get, reasonable drug policy and reasonable access to cannabis. That's my mission, is low barrier access to cannabis. It's my path to the top of the mountain that has fallen to me, and I'm going to continue on up the mountain as best I can until I can. But, I'm really upset about that, and it's not the first time
You're
at
getting
all.
a little bit more calm about it now, but you first learned that, you were pretty upset about that.
I am upset about it, and it's not just me.
And
it's been going on with other people.
Yeah.
And when I presented it to Jack, I said, Jack, well, how do they get up there and slander me like that? I mean, they can't do it in the public realm because I could sue them for it. But they can do it in front of a judge.
Yeah, but even the guy who's being charged for murder, the crown attorney's going to say this guy's a murderer. Right?
He's not.
Even though
he's not.
Yeah, right.
They don't get. Why do they get to say that?
Exactly.
What happened to innocent until proven guilty?
Exactly. Yeah.
Why do they get to go up there and say that I'm guilty before they've proven that I am? A judge has agreed.
What she should have said is, "I'm here to prove that he's a greedy opportunist."
Well,
right. That
we have evidence to show.
Right. Instead of just saying that straight out.
Really? Well, bring it out. Let's see
this.
that.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
So I said that to Jack. I said, how do they get to slander me in a court of law? Isn't that like a step above the public domain? And he said, well, that's our system. They say bad things about you. You get to say bad things about them.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
The king's representative gets to get up there and lie? Well, I'm not the only one. It's happened before, and it continues to happen all the time. Apparently, it's the way that it is. But I got a guest coming on today that's going to talk to us a little bit about his experience of having these people lie about him and make stuff up. And they have been caught making stuff up over and over and over again. This is a common theme. This is the corruption that happens amongst governments and law enforcement when you try to enact and enforce laws that cannot be enforced. They've got to justify it, they've got to be sneaky about it, they're willing to pull out all the dirty tricks to try to get it done, and this is patently wrong. This is incredibly wrong, and
it's really bad.
So let's bring Adam in. And,
I'll see you next week. I gotta go back to producing the show.
Yeah. You have to put that other hat on.
Yeah, I will. All right, we'll give Adam the
change your name tag.
All right, we'll see you later.
See you later. So Adam's been on the show before, and you don't get to come on yet. What are you doing? You're stepping right into my scene here. Adam is a wonderful guy that helped clean up neighborhoods for most of his working career. And then really found that there was a need amongst people that had not proper access to medical cannabis, and decided to help with that, and that spawned a new career for him. and it should be a wonderful thing, and we should be able to pat him on the back and shake his hand and look at the award that he was given by government for being a good citizen. But that's not the truth of it. And Adam, come on in here, buddy. Let's slide in a little bit.
That was one hell of a segue.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Well,
I'm a little late on my 420 joint, so.
Are you? Well, you have this one here if you want. You got this one going. You want to put this in?
No, I got one.
Oh, you got other ones?
I made sure.
Okay. It's important.
Yes, it is.
It's important. I don't know where we
now
would be.
listening to you talk about the lies that they told you. Absolutely, it's important.
These things are very important, and I don't know. I don't think I'd be able to continue on if I was just an angry drunk.
Absolutely not.
I think that the 420 moment of session is extremely important. The imbibing of cannabinoids to keep me calm a little bit, because these things are outrageous.
I've always known that I don't know if it's a chemical imbalance or what, but I was young when I started 12, 13, and I tell you, it's just always been there for me,
Yeah.
And,
for me, it was 15, and I knew right away.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So did I.
Right away. This is something I want to have in my life for my
Yeah.
whole life. This is really something that
I knew that as well.
is a positive thing.
But I don't think I turned into the activist I could say that I am now.
Yeah, I wasn't an activist
until
back then at all.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it. I was just a guy hiding from the cops.
Right.
In a
We all were.
stupid world I didn't really understand.
Yeah.
But it was a drug, and we heard all the hyperbole about how bad it was and all the rest of it, or I did, in my parents' Christian home, in the world that we live in. So,
Right.
I was a rebel.
Yeah,
Rebel. Bad boy.
That word drug bothers me, but the only way I will categorize cannabis as a drug is if we throw in the other ones that we don't call drugs, like
Caffeine. Love.
Yeah.
Alcohol.
Love. Yeah.
Many things are drugs. If it alters the way that you feel and think, I think it's a drug. I mean, that's just a broad definition of it.
Love. I've never heard that before. It just totally makes sense, though.
Oh, love is a drug.
Yeah. Well played.
And and you can go into that a little bit and then understand that love is very dose related.
Yeah. Right.
You can overdose.
Yeah.
You can go through withdrawals.
Yeah. Withdrawal for sure.
Total withdrawal, man. That's hard to go through.
That's worse than any other drug.
But what do? You can't just go out and buy some more love.
Right.
With hard drugs, you can just go out and buy some more hard drugs. You can get to that fourth day and you go, fuck this. Sorry, Annie Barbie. But, that's
why we're here.
That's kind of where you're at, when you're trying to get through withdrawal.
Yeah.
It is just so excruciating and hard for people that by the third or fourth day, most of them don't make it any farther than that because it's available. You can't just go fall in love. I mean, some people can, but for the most part, you better be careful with that.
Well, even Suboxone that they give people to try and help them get off the stuff, the doctor won't give it to them until they've been clean for 3 days.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean...
it's really hard to get
3 or 4.
clean.
Yeah, that's 3 or 4 days. I've watched a couple buddies go down that route, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
No.
It's
your mind does crazy things too,
Oh.
and it starts getting very rebellious, and it
Yeah.
starts finding all sorts of excuses and reasons why you just need to go back and get some more.
Yeah.
And,
Next time, I'll be able to make it next time.
Now that there's a whole bunch of things people go through, but they don't get through it. Most of the time, they don't get through it. High dose edibles, on the other hand, is something where when people use those properly with trying to go through withdrawal, they do get through it a large part of the time. Not always, but a large part of the time.
I mean,
it needs to be done right.
Gives them. I find that I've been talking to people and they say that it settles their stomach. They can actually get some food in.
Right.
Because that's the problem. Yeah, get sleep. I mean, that's the problem is that they don't get any food in, and it's all coming
Their
out.
mind gets distracted onto more positive things instead of focusing and obsessing about what they need and why
that's
they need
exactly
it.
what it is. It's
They
obsessive.
say it puts them on a different path, is the word I've heard, or the phrase I've heard many, many times
That's a
from
good way to
people.
put it.
That when they decide and they now go that route and they start using hard edibles for a while until they get through it, that it's a whole different path.
Yeah.
That they think differently, they feel differently, they're eating differently, they're sleeping differently. We need to have that as an option for people, don't we?
Absolutely.
Like, holy smokes. I wrote a letter. I wanted to share that on the show today. I write lots of letters, but I haven't written many letters to Mr. Benoit Seguin at Health Canada because I have a lawyer that has looked after that.
Yeah.
And I did write a couple letters to Benoit and got chastised for it, and rightfully so, because I'm angry.
From the lawyer, you mean?
From my
Oh,
lawyer,
yeah.
who said, you know, if you're going to write a letter, you better pass it through me first.
Yeah.
And anytime I would write a letter, I'd be like, yeah, I can't let John read this because, you know.
Yeah, right.
He's going to say it's
Yeah.
not a good idea to charge these people with murder.
Yeah.
To say that they're scumbags and they're corrupt and they're obviously...
But it's the truth, though.
It is the truth. But
But that goes into the, you know, they say bad things about you, you say bad things about them. You know, you think that'd be play ball,
I'm not
right?
lying.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not lying about this stuff.
I see these people every day now.
I see the results of what
Absolutely.
their ridiculous stance on things is, this laws and stuff. So, do you mind? I'm going to read a letter.
No,
It's not a terribly short letter, but it's not all that long a letter either. So, I said, good day, sir. I hope you had a good holiday season and all the best for the year ahead. Why not? I'm hoping he has a good year by being a good man and doing the right thing.
Start off on the right foot.
Back to the letter. It's now been 2 years this past December since we had the meeting over the phone with yourself, myself, and John Conroy to discuss the applications that we had submitted on September 16th of that year, 2020. To start that meeting, you began by apologizing for having taken so long to that point, over 3 months. You stated that you would likely get it done in early January. By the time we had applied, we had been operating the program in a collaboration with Van Du for over 3.5 years with great success. We had rescued hundreds of people from addiction, and we had the support of Vancouver City Council, Dr. M.J. Malloy, Professor Zachary Walsh, to name just a few. We had been told by Councillor Rebecca Bly, who put forward the motion to support us, that when we moved into a storefront, the city would provide us a license. But as it turned out, we first needed licenses from you. Once that was the case, we assembled and submitted our application, and as I'm sure you remember, also an application for an emergency temporary exemption from the Cannabis Act to protect us until licenses could be figured out. In the well over 2 years since, you told me on a few occasions that your team was working diligently on it every day. But still we wait. This is an extremely time-sensitive issue, as we are dealing with and responding to a public health crisis. Every day more people die that may not have if high-dose cannabis edibles were easily available. This has been well documented as fact and proven by science. I know you know this, Mr. Segway. Also, as you know, we have continued to provide no-cost and low-cost cannabis while waiting for our pending licenses. We certainly have no choice, as hundreds of people have come to rely on us over the years, and they would be put at risk of death if we stopped. As is stated clearly in our letters of support from Professor Walsh and Dr. Malloy, included in our application. This coming February, it'll be 6 years that we have been providing this life-saving service. Due to the inaction of yourself, with respect to not providing us with licenses or an exemption, we have been relegated to providing our service from an RV parked in front of the storefront that we're still paying rent on for more than 2 years, 2.5 years. This has resulted in many hardships, risks, and problems for both my team and for our clients, who should instead be able to occupy a safe storefront with some dignity. Not to mention that we are considerably handcuffed in our ability to reach many people we otherwise could be. Now, rather than be supported and applauded for the great work that we have done, myself and 2 of my colleagues are facing charges of selling cannabis without a license. This despite the relatively recent decision in the Howell case, as well as the recently concluded Warneke, Martin, and Siemens case, where it was determined that Canadians' rights are being violated with arbitrary limits on potency and a lack of storefront access. Not to mention the nearly 6-year track record that we have compiled helping people and hurting no one. Canadians need reasonable, low-barrier access to cannabis in all its forms without limits on the potency of edibles and without requiring medical oversight. The vast majority of the people who we are helping and who we have rescued from addiction do not have medical oversight when they are purchasing and consuming the hard street drugs readily available in this neighborhood. Most don't have a doctor. Many would not get a doctor even if they could. And as a matter of conscience, we cannot turn our backs on those people. Also, those who are trying to escape addiction and replace the use of hard drugs require hundreds of milligrams of THC per dose in edibles. I hope that very soon in this new year you will find a way to support us in providing what has been well proven to be the best harm reduction strategy and the real safe supply. There are many lives being held in the balance. May you do the right thing and quickly, for the sake of humanity and all those who will be lost without it. I hope he reads it. I hope he has a soul.
I think it's well read.
Yeah. I've been practicing for quite a while.
Yeah,
I know
this
story.
both, my friend. You
I
and
know
me
this
both.
story very well.
Yeah, we both played this game a little bit. You know, and the lies that they talk about. Oh, it's just.
So in my case, they're calling me names and accusing me of things that there is no supporting evidence for. In fact, I can show you a whole bunch of supporting evidence that I ain't living like no king, and I have no desire to do so. But in your case, so you were raided in your home.
Yeah.
Right around Halloween.
20 days later, so November 20th.
November 20th, last year? Or
2020. You got raided, and then it was like 2 weeks later, I got raided.
Right.
Yeah, that was pretty close.
Right. So for 2 years, you've been dealing with this.
Yeah.
It's still not over.
No, we're actually just going to do a pre-trial conference now because there's a new crown for us now. They changed the crown, so that now it's our next court date's
well, they made $1 million. They're on that road to make them all millionaires, and by the time your crown passed it on to somebody else, he probably finished off his $1 million in billing the Canadian public for trying to persecute people for having cannabis in their lives.
It's been almost 2.5 years now.
That's a big file.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's a big file.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money being billed because of you. They're going to spend a lot of money.
Yep.
Already have.
Oh yeah.
To get what out of you? What are they going to get out of you eventually?
They want
you're going to pay back the taxpayers here?
Right. They want 2.5 years for us.
2.5 years. So what? Jail?
Yeah.
So now they want to continue to spend taxpayers' money to house you in some sort of a prison complex.
Oh yeah.
You dangerous person, you.
Son of a bitch.
And boy, are you ever. They had to justify this somehow. What did they say about you?
Oh, this is good. So they, when they raided us, they told us it was because we had given edibles to children on Halloween.
Completely not true.
Well, I mean, let's just think about this. You know, like, I own a pretty decent edibles company, so I'm going to give out my products at my house on Halloween.
To unsuspecting children in the neighborhood.
I mean, where's the merit in that?
There could be a lot of heat with that.
Yeah, you'd think, right?
So that's completely untrue. But hey, they say bad things about you. You say bad things about them. It doesn't matter that
I'm like, if we go equal, I mean, I could probably say some really bad things about them.
Because they did some bad things.
Oh, they did some terrible things. So,
under the presumption of innocence, not?
No.
No.
No,
under the presumption of guilt, they decided to hurt you bad because you might get away with it in the courts because maybe they can't come up with a good enough lie and support it to get you actually punished in court.
Well, see, that's
but your crime is not providing cannabis edibles to unsuspecting children in the neighborhood. Your crime is producing cannabis edibles outside of the cartel.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what your crime is.
Yeah.
There's no victims.
Yeah.
There's, in fact, I know you have quite a file of people who have responded back after consuming your medicine, thanking you for the value that they got from it.
Absolutely. And you know what? Every one of those, I showed my 13-year-old daughter, and just to justify, like, no, I don't have
because
to.
You're proud of yourself.
I don't have to justify it to her now. But I mean, like, even 10 years ago, that would have been very taboo. You know? People would try and keep that from their kids for a very long time, and I just don't think that's the stigma's got to go. Yeah. You know. I mean, it's starting. I see a little bit of, let off, but the stigma's still there.
No, we have a desire to vindicate ourselves or to be vindicated for all this. We know we're good people doing the right thing. It's been really, really hard for me. I got to tell you.
I get it.
To be a cannabis activist because you do take a lot of heat from the powers that be, the authorities, lots of just ordinary people, but they're people in fairly high positions. They look down their nose at you. You get no respect. They labeled me as anti-police, for God's sake. There's another lie that's on my file, that's been there for a while apparently, that they're using against me in court, where I'm anti-police. What have I ever done that was anti-police? I don't like that our poor people that are policemen have to try to enforce a really bad law that gets them disrespecting the community, and they shouldn't be doing that. but I'm not anti-police. I don't like cops that are bullies, you know.
Yeah.
I don't like it when I see that.
Yeah.
I don't like it when I see cops that are all gung-ho to enforce a bad law, even though they must know that it's not right to have that poor kid in the back of their car that all he had was a little bit of rolled up dried herb that he thought might give him a nice trip on a Friday night. They know that's a totally wrong thing to be doing to that young man
And a lot of them will tell you that, though. I've met
Right.
quite a few of them that are just like,
That's what I mean.
It doesn't make sense.
So there might be the odd gung-ho cop who thinks that's okay. I know there's the odd one that thinks they're really going to try to steer this young man in a better direction, and they try to hang on to that. But they're not all bad people, and I'm not anti-police at all. So for them to put that on my record and tell it to a judge and have it in my disclosure,
It's funny that you say that.
wrong.
You're talking about the asshole gung-ho cop. So when they raided us, they actually pulled me over in my pickup on River Road, and then they towed it, which I never seen it again. You know, $30,000 into the financing, and never seen it again. And they told us they were going to take it for
truck you're driving now, eh?
Yeah. Wow. Can't have a decent vehicle when you do this.
I guess.
You know. And
Yeah,
so
can't have nice things.
you know, they ended up not bringing me to the cop shop. They brought me back to my house where they took all of my money, both mine and my wife's phones, both of our laptops, pretty much anything we could communicate with. And when I went to the house, they let me out of the paddy wagon. My buddy asked me if I wanted to get a jacket out of the house because it was freezing rain. It was probably like arguably the coldest weekend of the winter. And so I said, yeah, that'd be great. So I go to walk inside, and here I get one of the officers steps into my trail just so he could give me a shoulder.
Right.
I tell you, this kid didn't look like more than 15 years old. Skin tight pants, with his backwards hat, and you know.
Tough guy.
Yeah.
Tough
and
guy now.
I turn around and I just
got
looked
the
at
badge and the uniform and the gun. He's a tough guy now. He's got friends, you know.
And I said to him, I said, you know, what the hell is your problem? I said, I've been pretty nice to everybody involved. I mean, I get that you guys got a job to do. You know, this comes from above. But I mean, at the same time, like, who the fuck do you think you are?
Yeah.
And he said,
Who does he think you are?
well, see, that's the problem. Is he says, you're going to jail for 14 years for giving it to kids, and we're here saving lives. And I'm like,
Oh
well,
my God.
this is where I stop. Because this is where we had already started donating some product to you. And they got us with a pretty substantial amount. I'm not going to lie. But it was because we had made a whole shit ton for you guys. And so...
Once again, interfering with our ability to get medicine to the people.
Absolutely.
They've stolen our medicine here on a few different occasions.
Oh, there was probably...
Indirectly, they did that again.
Probably
through
500
you.
packs at least. You know, and when he said that, he says, oh, we're here saving lives. I looked at him, I said,
Wow.
do you even know where that product is going? And I tried to tell him. I said, and then at the end of my rant, I said, you know what? I said, if anybody's trying to save lives around here, I said, it's me.
Exactly.
And he said something else, and I kind of took a step. You know, emotions got the best of me, but I knew what I was doing. But the cop behind me, he grabbed me like this with one finger and one thumb, just enough that, you know, basically just I turn around. And he's like, I get it, but just it's smarter. I said, yeah. I said, I appreciate that. I said, I probably wouldn't have done anything anyway, but just the fact that he had enough respect to just, like I said, one thumb, one index finger right on the wrist.
I've certainly
just to say like, but I turn around. He's like, well, I get it. You know,
I've had both sides of the law enforcement in that regard as well.
So
the police that arrested me in Edmonton, they knew who I was. The one officer, his brother was already a LEAP member. I was a LEAP representative, a civilian representative. They treated me very, very well there.
Yeah.
But I've had other cops, they squeeze those handcuffs on so tight. You are in such pain.
Purple,
and it doesn't matter that you complain about it. You know, I've
some of them are just terrible.
And you know, I've worked,
a lot of them aren't though.
I've worked in the insurance industry.
Yeah.
Where people get their homes kicked in, and the guys that kick the people's homes in are committing a horrible crime against those people.
Yeah.
These are people's, their security is shattered.
Yeah.
In many cases, their personal items, the women, their things are violated in their dresser drawers and other things, and everyone who has had someone break into their home and steal their stuff knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Very intrusive.
This is a very nasty, nasty crime to do to people. And so the cops, they feel helpless.
Mm-hmm.
They show up after the fact.
Yeah.
Very seldom ever catch the guy. And they will tell the homeowner. I heard it on several occasions where the cops had told the homeowner, if you catch somebody doing this, make sure that they try to escape and fall down the stairs a couple times before we get here, because there's nothing we can do.
No, even if they do catch them, they're going to be out that same night.
They judge a slap on the wrist. They don't treat it like it's a very serious crime, breaking into somebody's home like that. There's always extenuating circumstances. These poor people are desperate. They've had bad lives. They didn't know what else to do.
We've all been there, though.
They got in with the wrong crowd. There's always, the defense side of why these people get a slap on the wrist when they do something really horrible, like violate somebody's personal space and being. But the point being that the cops feel that way. They express that. They say, make sure he falls down the stairs on his escape, because nothing else is going to happen to this guy. And they go beyond that, and that's what we're talking about with what you're saying. They will give that shoulder check. They will make you fall down. They will put those handcuffs on.
He did it in front of everybody. There was probably 15 cops around there, and he did it in front of everybody. And I looked at everybody, and they're like, they knew that was out of bounds, and they
can't say nothing.
They couldn't say anything. Even though he's the lowest guy on the totem pole, you can't do that in front of, because there was public out there. There was people that were looking. They put up a giant tent, like a hazmat tent, on our house before they opened every door and window and turned off our power.
I thought they only did that when they got a body.
Yeah, right.
Put up a tent and shit.
No, it gets even worse than that, though, because I talked to my neighbor when we were moving out, because we got a 30-day on the door, so we had to move out. But we'd been there for almost 5 years. So, I mean, when you have a house like that, I mean, it takes a long time to pack, right? But he comes over on New Year's Eve, packing up the truck, and he's like, I used to be a lawyer. I talk to this guy all the time, like mowing the lawn, stuff like that. Talk to him all the time. Never knew what he did. But he comes over and he says, he practiced law for a long time. He said, they did you really dirty. Yeah. They walked up to every house and told them that there was a raid going on and made it seem, without using the words, meth or fentanyl, that's the way they made it seem to these people.
There was some real dangerous thing going on.
Yeah, but everybody on the block.
Wow.
Like, how is that? Like, if you're talking about slander.
Oh, I know.
I mean, and, we lived in a fairly decent part of town, a lot of white, retired folks and stuff like that, and they wouldn't even look at us after that. Like, even when they shut off our power for 4 days, we had some extensive fish tanks, and after that happened, all the houses around me, I went and asked, I said, can I just get an extension cord plugged in? I said, I gotta save my fish, probably like $6,000 in fish, and my daughter's tank, and I couldn't get an extension cord plugged in just for the fish. I didn't even care about me. I didn't need heaters or anything like that. I'm like, I'll just, just to save the animals. And I don't even understand how that was a good idea. There was probably 20 cops in my house that day. You think one of them would know, hey, if you cut off the power, all these animals are going to die. And they just let them die. And the worst thing is, so I was actually trying to give them away on Friday night. But because of the fact that they had taken our phones and everything like that, well, we couldn't call emergency services. We couldn't do anything. So because on Halloween we weren't giving away candy, we left a bowl of bags of chips at the end of the walkway. And cause my daughter asked us, well, you're going to go trick-or-treating? She's like, no, I don't think so. She's like, maybe I'll just have a friend over. We'll have a little bonfire in the backyard. So I had a bonfire like this. And then the fire department shows up. The cop that lives down the street, he's doing like a 3-hour fireworks
display.
So we knew right away that we would get somebody there if we lit a bonfire in the backyard. So that's what we did. And then so they come to the house and they're just like, we're just like, okay, well, can you call the SPCA or can we try and find somebody to take these so that they don't die? I'm like, I'm willing to give away my $6,000 collection, but just like, we just need to figure out. And so they rolled up the window and he's like, yeah, 1 minute. So he makes one phone call. And then he says, well, I'm not going to help you with the fish. He said, I was just here to see if you were allowed back in the house or not. So I had to call my supervisor. I'm like, what about my animals? Like, they left my 3-year-old short-haired rescue dog in the pitch black, in the freezing cold. She was shivering and just terrified when we got back there. Like, how does that happen in this day and age?
Innocent until proven guilty.
Well,
It's horrible because, you know, the real horrible thing, it does get a little bit worse yet, is that yours is not an isolated incident. That yours is a story that's been repeated over and over again. These police have great power.
I find that
to be able to find ways, like in small towns,
municipal cops.
if you get targeted in a small town,
no,
man, your life is hell. They will pull you over for every little thing. They can make your life hell.
I grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. 60,000 people in the middle of nowhere. Believe me, I get that. Yeah. And my dad moved all
I've heard that story over and over again too.
Oh yeah,
because once they got on the radar, once they found out that this person was using cannabis or something,
that's it.
They just fucking hound them and target them. And in today's world, holy shit, man, the surveillance that they have going on,
their CCTV,
their abilities.
Everywhere.
I mean, they can be just driving down the road. They've got a little scanner, and if any license plate pops up, boom.
I got a funny story about that too.
You want to tell your funny story about that, do you?
So
last week we put you on a bit of a cliffhanger, saying that we had a guest lined up, but he wasn't able to make it, and that if you tuned into the following show, you might get to find out what happened with that. One other side note is that I also mentioned last week about the weather report, my weekly weather report from down here, about the week before, but we didn't do a show that week, so you wouldn't have got to see the huge snowfall.
It was Snowmageddon.
Yeah. It was Snowmageddon, and it was Coldmageddon.
It was
so flipping cold, man.
That's probably the longest I've seen snow since I moved here in 08, and that was definitely the coldest snap that I felt.
That wasn't the most snow.
They say that was the most snow in any December on record.
Really?
Yeah.
No, maybe in December, because the other big ones were usually January, February. Actually, that's true. We'd always anticipate, hope that we could get a white Christmas, and we got some growing up. But you're right. Those when it really snowed, that would have been after Christmas. So it would have been but for me, I'd seen more snow than that here. I had not experienced as cold as it was for 3 or 4 or 5 days. It was so cold.
Yeah.
And we do have cold snaps here.
Yeah.
But that was that might have been a record too. To have the both combined.
Yeah.
To have that much snow and that cold going on. I mean, it really felt like the Arctic for a while.
Thank God we were in the tent still. Thank God we weren't in the tent still. That's all I can think of.
Yeah.
There was another phenomenon in Agassiz where we've got these huge pieces of ice that came down the Fraser River, and they're all around the bridge, and there's nothing like this except for in the Antarctic. Huh. And it does somewhere appear up the Fraser River, but not so much in Agassiz. So they had it on the news. Like
there would have been huge ice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We had one hanging off the building here.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I back home, those when they come off the roof, I tell you, like they could be like half the size of the building.
Yeah, this one was
yeah, I know that one was pretty big.
It was very big.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that man, did it go away fast.
When it was over, it felt like it was lasted forever.
Friday,
gone.
All of a sudden, it's 8 degrees.
I'm surprised we didn't flood a lot more.
Me too. There was a lot of flooding. A lot of people, did have problems, but not like what I thought we were going to have.
No, even like a couple years ago when we got a pretty good snowstorm, that flood was like it was everywhere.
Yeah. Jay Frost likes the Snowmageddon.
The Snowmageddon. Yeah. What's up, Jay Frost?
He says you're a supporter of his show, one of his very first sponsors.
I met that guy in Sault Ste. Marie before.
Oh, right.
I bought an N64 off him.
Oh, really?
And we've been talking ever since.
64.
Yeah, like a Nintendo 64.
Oh, Nintendo
64.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Man, that was a long time ago. That's cool though. That's good.
You've known him that long.
I've known him quite a bit.
I met him in Winnipeg.
Probably coming up on 20 years, I bet.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. But he went his way after that, and we always kept in touch.
Yeah. He's got his little boy now.
Yeah.
So,
wife. Yeah.
So you're gonna help us start the RV and jumpstart the car, and you pull up.
Being the nice guy.
You pull up your replacement truck.
Yeah.
And there you are, and VPD drives through the lane, and all of a sudden they're on you.
Yeah, they do a U-E, and then so she turns around and she's about to get out of her car. I said, "I'm just jumping it," because we're on a one way, right? So I'd be
facing the wrong way.
Yeah.
To get nose to nose to the RV.
And she looks at me and she says, "Are you Adam?" I said, "Yes." And then I thought, That's not a good sign.
That's not a good sign.
That's not a good sign. So it ended up being just a
Well, it was more of a miscommunication
between me and my
with
lawyer.
respect to your lawyer and yourself,
Yeah.
and a check-in that you were supposed to do, and then the information was incorrect.
Yeah.
And you tried and failed, and then kind of let it
just
go.
I with Christmas coming up and everything like that, I've got quite a bit on my plate. But I did call him and I said, hey, I don't think this is the right number that I'm supposed to be calling.
Right.
And he told me that he was going to send me the paperwork, and then he didn't, and I just kind of I lost it.
Had you known that was such a serious offense that you were going to spend 30 hours in a fucking cage,
Oh, jeez.
you just might have gone on it, eh?
Oh, you would think.
You think?
Yeah, and then so that's the funny part too, is that when she arrested me, they seemed pretty nice. Like the courthouse is literally just steps
Well, I told
away.
her to be nice to you. I said that's a good man,
Yeah,
and
I heard you.
fuckers.
And
Sorry,
she
Aunt
said,
Barbie.
yeah, she said, oh, it's an endorsed warrant, so you'll be out a couple hours, kind of thing. I said, yeah, okay.
And even if it's not, you're going to be out by midnight, you would think. And even if not that, certainly early the next morning, first thing, right?
Yeah.
No.
So it was like 12 o'clock when that happened.
Yeah, about 12:30.
Yeah, and then it was just before 5 o'clock when I got out the next day. Over a phone call.
Yeah, and when I put it to them, I said, what's going on? So it's a warrant, and it was like you thought it was $100 or something, something
fine,
frivolous like that. Turns out it was even less frivolous than that.
Yeah, even less for
and I said right away when that was it. So what? You guys are gonna waste thousands of dollars on like $100 outstanding?
But then you know what? Though
thing,
they not thousands of dollars in that 24 hours before lunchtime the next day. They gave me 2 cookies and 2 fruit straps.
Oh, so you're gonna take that off of thousands of dollars.
I'm like, whoa, that's pretty expensive fruit leather.
Maintaining a prison, your share of the overhead, the wages.
I was amazed to see how many people were there.
Those cops have to now write up a file at the end of the day. They're billing for time. They didn't catch the guy that they would have had they not stopped for you.
Right.
That caused a serious problem just down the lane. We don't know that, but of course that's always a possibility when they're involved in one thing. They're not involved. We're not able to be involved in other things that are possibly way more serious for us. So they should not be involved in things that are frivolous. They can be accomplished with some guy with a telephone calling his lawyer to find out what the deal is.
Yeah.
How do we get a hold of him? No, we're not going to arrest him on the spot. No, we're not going to send. We need to talk to him to make sure.
Yeah.
They didn't do any of that kind of stuff. They just assume that you're guilty. Assume that on behalf of everybody in society, they're going to make it hurt for you because maybe the courts won't.
Right.
And all of those sorts of things. That's permeating throughout our system here. Not innocent until proven guilty. Treated like an animal in most cases. Who puts people into cages? What are we doing? Beyond the second millennium here, we're still putting people into cages for ridiculous things. Some people, not many, really need to spend some time alone by themselves when they just can't stop hurting other people in significant ways. But that's not the tens of thousands of people that are behind bars at our expense right now in Canada. What are we teaching these people a lesson by treating them like dogs?
The only lesson they're teaching them is how to be better criminals.
Mostly, how to be angry at the system.
No, I've talked to people that go into those institutions, and they just basically say that they come out better criminals.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. It's a school for how to be antisocial and criminal. And you're not, most of the time, who knows about the remorse for what you did? It's about being angry about the fact that now you're in a cage, when that's not how they needed to deal with you. Human beings shouldn't be, we respond way better when we're not put into cages. And handcuffs too. They handcuff everybody that they basically talk to.
Yeah.
Anything at all, boom, you're in cuffs. Oh, officer safety. This is a well-trained police officer with a gun, and probably a partner, almost always, and usually big, or if not big, well-trained. What? They're in danger.
It's funny that you say
immediately.
That.
Come on.
The officer safety thing. It's funny. I'm sorry to cut you off, but the officer safety thing makes me laugh because that's why they cut off our power apparently.
Oh,
even though there was no nothing manipulated to the power. Even when they took our smart meter off, and then 11 o'clock that night on that Friday, they had BC Hydro come out with a backhoe, and they dug out my front yard to make sure it was shut off at the.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was for officer safety. But I can only imagine that it was safe for them to do the search with the lights on, and then once
safer probably than doing it without the lights on.
That you should have
wandering around in the dark.
Should have seen our place after that. There's broken glass everywhere. There was. But
there's a reason they had to. There's a reason for all of it. They can make excuses for all of it. They're above the law. They know that if they're going to be brought before a judge on any of these accusations that you're making against them, they're going to have an excuse for why that was the case. And this and that, and they got this all figured out. And the judge, what's he going to do? Is he really going to slap the wrist of the cops? Probably not. He deals with this guy lots of times, coming into his courtroom, giving testimony. They're probably friends on some level.
Yeah.
Who knows?
But
it's all just a club.
Oh yeah.
We went to court this morning, and there's one of our favorite sheriffs there. His name is Jay, and he really looks like he probably enjoys a J. Legally, of course. Of course. I actually knew a sheriff, Dennis. I wonder what you're doing now, Dennis. That was a long time ago. You must be an old man now, because you were older than me when you came and played pool with my dad downstairs. But Dennis became a sheriff. Dennis was a little bit of a wild guy there, So that's all I'm going to say about that. I love you. Not going to ruin your reputation, but you guys cross lines because you're above the law. That's what they do. That's what you do when you're above the law. But it's so like when the act of putting somebody in handcuffs like that. I mean, what do you think when you drive by a cop who's now got somebody standing there and it's clear they're in handcuffs?
Because I've been on that side.
They got a bad guy.
Yeah. Me because I'm like, I wonder what they're putting on him.
I wonder what he did,
Yeah.
Whereas you should be innocent until proven guilty, and even with quite a bit of suspicion about something, you have a conversation. You determine through more reasonable ways about whether or not this person deserves to be confined.
They do have
because that is not a simple thing. Putting somebody in handcuffs is traumatizing.
I was going to say they have that conversation with you, but you're in handcuffs while you're doing it.
Yeah, that's right.
Because then you're
they don't want to take any chances.
Well, not only that, but then you're a little frazzled because you know what I mean. They want you
off balance.
Well, because then one wrong word and that's used against you.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere that night. Now they got you, right?
Yeah.
And like I say, with the stigmatization for all the people that see all of that, I mean, you are treated like a criminal right off the hop here. So it's just our system is broken, right?
Yeah.
We don't have what we have. We're supposed to have peace officers. They're supposed to be public servants. Your home is supposed to be your castle. You're supposed to at least have your natural rights, but no. This is unnatural here. You must be submissive to the king, and these rules that they have surrounding what drugs you can have are just abhorrent and have cost us so much, and they're so unjustified.
We can have the ones that make them money. That's it.
And that's what's
because even a lot of people don't realize that there is over 60 new laws since the Cannabis Act has come into play, and they can actually give you a pretty hefty fine if they get you. You're allowed to carry. Your 28 grams or 30 grams or whatever, but if it's not in a government container, they can give you a big fine.
If it's open and you're anywhere near where you're driving, pretty big fine.
Yeah.
If you're in a canoe and you're smoking weed out there, that's a pretty big fine. If you if you pass,
if I'm in a canoe, I'm definitely smoking.
Yeah, no, you're not allowed to smoke in a canoe.
Wow.
I don't know if that's 100%.
Nah,
but I think it is.
If it was, though.
Somebody told me that, and I believe them.
I feel like they were pulling your legs.
No, it was Dana Larson, and he was pointing out.
He's a pretty
reliable fellow.
Yeah.
And he was pointing out about how this the way it's now being pressed on. Like there's the federal side of it, and then there's the provincial what they do. And here we've been pretty draconian and stupid and abhorrent in how they're treating people with respect to
because there's nobody slapping their wrist. That's the problem.
Yeah, the system is broken because there's so many people in all of these different positions of influence whose interest it is to continue to keep things going here with prohibition,
because otherwise they don't get a paycheck.
It's all about money.
Yeah.
All of it is all about money. A little bit about control. but mostly it's about money and saving face. There's some about, these governments over these years are all criminals for continuing this. At some point, a justice minister should have talked to the health minister. They should have done due diligence. They should have come back and said, well, there's certainly no reason for using the criminal law against free citizens, with respect to having this plant on them.
But they can't do that because the next one up is going to say, well, sure, you're fired.
Well, of course. It was never in their interest to do that. And so they never did do it, and they maintained it, and now it's been 100 years. 100 years of bullshit. 100 years of wasting our tax dollars. It's a criminal misuse of our public funds. It has cost our society so much money. It's ruined so many lives.
They could fix what's going on out these doors, for sure, if they weren't spending the money on people like us.
There are several fixes. There's many good people in the neighborhood who have really good answers if they were all acted upon properly. They've cut in half the money that they've allocated to try to help with this public health crisis. Not that the people have slowed down and how many are dying or anything, just that the public interest isn't there because they've stigmatized this thing so bad that the people that are dying, with the pandemic, it was they were old. Well, with this one, they're all bad people. They're all drug addicts. They're all,
it's getting worse since the pandemic. Like, there's a lot more people out of work now, with the mandates and stuff like that, how now they can't get their jobs back. And there's a lot of people that have turned up in this neighborhood over the past, 6 months or so that I've noticed. A lot of new faces around here.
Always.
Always.
Very good. Well, thanks, Adam. I really appreciate you coming on the show and talking about these things. It's very personal, and people need to know that this is what's going on in our world of Canada here. If you're just living in the mainstream and you're staying away from the edges, and you manage to live your life without getting into some of these positions where the government now gets to have some control over you, then you can live a decent life here in Canada, and probably better than most places. But if you're one of the ones that are in those demographics of being poor or anti-police or all these other things,
there's no middle class anymore.
It's the disabled people of Canada that are not properly represented.
For sure.
There's no protections for them. They have way better protections in the States than they do here, and now, with labeling people as being affected by mental health and how that takes away your rights. And now you're disabled as a person suffering mental health issues because you're using non-legal, money-making for the government drugs. It's a very insidious world that we're moving towards. We really need to take these things very, very seriously. I try to have as much fun as I can, approaching these things, and I make jokes out of a lot of stuff. I try to keep it a little bit light. We have our 420 session to do that and bring some levity. But these are really serious things.
When I talk about my stuff, I feel like I need to smoke a joint. If I know that I'm going to start 100%. Talking about the raid and how we were treated and stuff like that, I definitely will sit back, have a couple puffs, and then I'll tell my story. Because if not, I get it chokes me up quite a bit.
So we've had 100 years of this. This is not just a new year. This is a new century with respect to the prohibition of cannabis. And as we move into a new century, or as we move into a new year, the idea is that we shed that which was negative and those habits that were bad that had caused us problems in the year or the century before that. So my hope is for you and for all of us that we can shed these negative patterns of behavior of our governments and how we're governed and what we do about that and all of the things that go with this, that all of these contributing factors to this corrupt world that we have here that we're complaining about and hoping for a solution for. And as we move into this new century and this new year that we're about to have, I don't know if there's ever been as much reason as now, as we are beginning to enter into very scary times with the ability of our governments to gather information on us and to survey us and to control us. And so that we need to form a team of average citizens, all of us. We're all in this together for real with respect to how we're being governed and how the media is being controlled and all these different aspects of things. We need to be little soldiers with our own little plans and do the best that we can to try to solve these things. I always say write emails, send letters, make phone calls, talk amongst yourselves, but there's a myriad of other things that people can do. You can start making edibles and help the people out that needed to be helped out, and that's been a strategy of the cannabis community for a long time with all of our dispensaries that we opened blatantly in full plain sight of
Yeah.
everybody, saying, please make us legal,
they didn't-
was about looking after the people that were being harmed the most by the government policy of prohibition.
They didn't come get us though when we were doing that.
Well, eventually
No,
they did.
Eventually, because
You know,
it's
but
all about that.
They had to find a way to stop it and shut it down, and
Yeah.
they couldn't do it by brute force because we had too much power
Yeah,
for that
too
and too
many.
much support for
Yeah.
that. So they did it this way. They said they got their pretty boy liar up there, you know, the one that got voted in because his dad was quite the prime minister, I guess. And so this kindergarten teacher that can smile real pretty and say what he needs to say got
Can
up
he?
there. Well, he
I
does
don't-
for them. Well, not
I don't-
always.
You
There's
see
some
the,
pretty
see the
stupid.
plastic water bottle thing?
There's some pretty
That video?
stupid clips of him
that's
as well.
Pretty bad. That's
but
pretty
you know,
bad.
I'm not going to prey on a person's disabilities.
Right.
But I am going to say that this man is a liar, and he has no business being in the position that he is in because
I
of
don't
what he
think
has
so.
done and what he has said and what he is continuing. We need to stop all attempts to criminalize or penalize people that are dealing with the cannabis plant. No one is being harmed. People are being helped. Let the marketplace decide these things. Get the hell out of our business with respect to that, because you're killing people at a very large rate. Not just because all of that is to do also with the opioid crisis. It's the lack of reasonable access to cannabis for people in all of these neighborhoods that need access. It's the lack of information that's out there about how it's so valuable to help people get off of those other drugs. And all of that stuff is on you, Mr. Prime Minister. But to lie to us, to tell us during the lead up to your campaign of putting together a cartel and having a hostile takeover of the cannabis industry, you told us that you would be eliminating that black marketplace by having better cannabis at better prices. You told us that we were going to be okay as medical users because we would no longer have any problems with access. And that was all just lies, because that was not in the platform. That is not how you rolled it out, and those were never your intentions. So, you know, they're all criminals in my mind, and we need to do something about it, and it's getting serious, folks. You know, we need to get on this. And we're about to have one of those crucial moments in time if we ever get to drag them into court, which I'm sure they're now going to try to avoid, as you know, as they probably should if they realize what it is that they've opened up here. But you know, history is in the making. 100 years down the road, we're going to get it right. We're going to have to kick this whole idea of a Cannabis Act and all of this taxation and fees and regulations that make no sense. And all that's got to get worked out. This is the year to do it. We can do it if enough of us get on it and find our own creative ways to influence the influencers, to influence the public, to get the truth out there, and let's make this the year that we really get coordinated and organized in some fashion, even if we're all independent from each other doing different things. We're of one heart, we're of one goal, we're all wanting the same thing: freedom from the oppression of these corporate parasites and rich parasites that are doing everything in their power, and they have lots of it, to coerce us and force us into consuming and producing for them, and obey or else. And I don't want this to be the future for this planet. It can't be.
No.
If we're going to be a successful species, we cannot move into the future being a prison planet of a bunch of corporate elite people whose agendas are not humanity and not humane running the show here. We need to take back our power, have actual public servants, have them understand that they are limited in what they can do, make them transparent in everything that they do. We have the technology to do that, so they have no ability to sell us out to the corporate parasites, and make them accountable if they do that. And this is the type of world that we need to move forward with in a way, in a democratic way that makes sense. That nobody, no majority, no minority, nobody gets to ever overrule the rights of any individual to live their life and make their choices and do whatever they're doing, as long as they're not harming other people in demonstrable, significant ways. We're smart enough to do this. We've just been dumbed down by a world that does that, and by a group of elite people in their own minds, but they're, like I say, I think they're elite parasites because of their greedy opportunism in the way that they take over countries and seize resources and control people and do whatever the hell they want, and think that we are nothing but their chattel to use as they wish. And believe it, that's happening. That's who we're dealing with. And they don't care about us, they don't care about you, they don't care about anything about the almighty dollar and making sure that they feel like they're kings of the world. So, you know, we can, if we join together and have that one heart, that one mind, that one goal of freedom for the future and in well-defined ways, we can achieve that, but we have to all work
Look at the convoy. The convoy, you know, people were not happy about the mandates.
I know.
And so the convoy started here.
And
two days, and their whole empire was crumbling after that.
And then we found out just, you know, what's behind those walls.
Oh, geez.
Those walls of power.
Yeah. We don't have enough time for this conversation.
Yeah, I know. We're done for this one,
Yeah.
but at one point we're going to get into that about just what we found out in the last couple of years here. You know, this was an information gathering exercise of an extreme that we've never seen before by the other side, by the evil empire, by those corporate people who needed to know who was obedient, who wasn't, how will they comply, what will they do, all this sorts of stuff. But it was also an opportunity for those of us that are, you know, awake and observing and trying to figure shit out here and make it a better world, to understand the depths that they have, that they will go to, the power that they can have whenever they decide to say, hey, no, we can just put in this act, and now we can override all of these rights that you think you have, and all the rest that they can do. We need to have them operating in a way that only allows that to happen when it's reasonable and just, and not on the whims of a scared human being who just doesn't want to confront a bunch of people who have some truth and reason to speak in the face of the ridiculousness that was being forced upon us here in Canada. We will get into this at some show in the future, but if he'd have just come out and talked, that's all they wanted. That's all we needed. We needed to have a dialogue, a conversation about these things.
It looked really bad because of that.
And all he did was sit back and wait until he could frame it in a way to say these are extremists that are now disrupting neighborhoods, and they're willing to go to any lengths, and they're terrorists, and they're bad Canadians, and we're seizing their bank accounts.
Seizing your bank account. That's the ultimate.
That rippled around the world, I'll tell you.
We were the laughing stock for quite some time.
Wow, I think we scared the hell out of everybody in, because they all now know that they're in the similar situation wherever they are.
Yeah.
That if it can happen with the Canadian government, with Canadian people.
Well, that's exactly it, right?
You know, and if they can continue to use our tax dollars to arm armies of people, to prohibit people's access to getting a plant that has helped people for thousands of years in a variety of ways and never killed anybody and has not anything to do with the lies that they don't. If they can still do that, then we are not free and we are in trouble.
Well, look, we just got another note. Basically, it was from somebody just saying how much it helped them, and we've talked to people about this, about getting some letters maybe for court.
So this has come in to us today. Hi, my name is Charlie, and I use.
I'm a person with disabilities. I use CBD and THC cookies for multiple different reasons.
Pain, anxiety, sleep, mood, and a lot of other things. I truly believe if anyone understands, it would be very productive to continue on a positive note and supply people in need what they deserve, an efficient way to detox or just relax during stressful times, the pandemic in brackets. Isolation and precautions.
Pandemic minus COVID-19 isolation.
And precautions.
But that just shows how many, we're getting these letters, fairly often. And like you said, I get these emails from my website, and, it's helping people. It's helping a lot of people, and the fact that it's being denied access to anybody, for that matter, is...
As I laid it out to Mr. Seguin in my letter there, that there's no need for any debate about this. This is fact. This is science. It's been well documented.
But they can sell it.
John Conroy, best lawyer in the cannabis world. Apparently, we'll see if Jack can, follow in his footsteps and surpass him. Who knows? We need good.
Like the activist type, though.
We need good activist lawyers. Holy smokes, do we ever? And John's been a good one over the years. And
I can hear it in Jack's voice, though.
True.
He's got a lot of passion for what we do too, I think.
I hope we can get this done. But
this is our time, though.
John sent so many letters. Like I said, I didn't send many letters to Mr. Seguin because my letters were angry. I was upset that, Mr. Seguin had apologized after 3 months of taking so long. And damn right it was taking too long. We ended up getting evicted because they took so long at that point. Now we're out in an RV. And so I was angry. And I recognized the implications. And that side of me kind of was what was writing these letters. And so
getting it out probably on paper or on the phone or whatever probably did help, though, I would imagine.
I don't know what helps. I don't know what's right. I don't know if John's right or not. I mean, maybe I write an angry letter to the guy in charge, and maybe it gets through to him. I don't know. But I backed off. I stopped. I wrote letters to lots of other people, and I copied them to a whole bunch of other people, but not to Mr. Seguin. I left him alone. I left him to Mr. Conroy. And what I'm saying is that John sent numerous studies as they would come forward, showing the efficacy, the safety of cannabinoid replacement therapeutics, and to the point where we stopped doing that. A year went by, another year went by. I kept, sending them to John, and John said, "We're not sending them anymore." Yeah. There's no debate about it.
They get the point.
They know. They know.
They've got an agenda, though.
But for some reason, it doesn't matter that it's effective, it's safe, it's the best harm reduction option in a public health emergency. That almighty dollar, those people that are insistent on this hostile takeover of the cannabis industry,
probably investors,
they are dangerous people, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
And our public servants are under their thumb with respect to what they can and cannot do, because if they were real public servants and if they really cared, they would at least come here and check it out, for one thing. But in any way that they checked out what we're doing here, we have Dr. Malloy's studies, we have the letters from Professor Walsh, we have so many things. If they did any investigation into what we're doing here, they would immediately support us if their agenda was to care about the people here. And if we need to be shaped into a way that allows for more standardized dosaging of our or labeling of our edibles, which you've got going on, and some do and some don't, but we're still just getting out whatever we get in to people, that would be great. That would be great. Help us. Help people. That's what we're asking for from our public servants here, and the resistance that we're getting to the point of being now treated as criminals and even lied about in the courts to justify their
well, they lied about us in the media.
Terrible position on this.
We were on every newspaper, every news agency. Like they basically told us that we were giving it to kids, and they told everybody that. Yeah. Like, if that's not slander, I don't know what the hell is.
They did that to me too.
Funny thing is, in the disclosure, there's not really much about the kid thing.
We're going a little overtime. In 2015, when they arrested me at Cannabis Day, when I got out of jail that night, they let me out around midnight, so I wasn't there all day like you.
Lucky guy.
But what do I hear on CKNW? That they had arrested someone who was providing to children.
Really?
That's what they said.
Okay.
Oh man, I was all over that. I called CKNW. I was so angry about that.
I definitely made some phone calls myself.
I mean, I'm a family man. I'm a great parent, I think, and as best I can be. I take that very, very seriously. I always have. I would never provide to someone's child. I wouldn't do that at all.
We tried to call the agency, and they wouldn't talk to us, though.
Yeah, and they never went ahead with that charge, by the way, because it wasn't real. It wasn't true. And yet they get away with lying. And that's the theme of why you're here today. That's what I wanted to really get off my chest.
There wasn't really very much in the disclosure about the kid thing in the first place. They talked about other things.
Right.
But yet they're still charging us for that. But it's like the stack is this big, but only a page is about the kid thing.
Right. And in my disclosure for what we're doing here, there's not one single victim, child or otherwise, that they've brought forward, because there are none.
Yeah, they won't bring somebody forward for us either. So I mean, that should just
Whatever happened to meeting your accuser in court? Whatever happened to that?
Or seeing any evidence at all? That John was the first call that we made after the raid.
Have to do some damage.
Yeah, John was the first person that we called after the raid, and we asked him to look into how they got the warrant, and that's what they said, that that we were giving it to kids. And then so when John went to go find out what was in the warrant, or the reason why they got the warrant, everything's blanked out.
Yep, because they don't have proper justification, and they're not about to have to show it unless, I don't know what, but probably not much.
I got some work to do.
Go to work.
All right.
Thank you very much, sir.
It's good seeing you guys all.
Have a great New Year.
Yeah,
and you know what to do, right?
Let's
have as much fun as you can.
Right.
Oh, man. The journey continues. The quest for the low barrier access community cannabis store that's been ongoing here for over 2.5 years. As ludicrous as that sounds, stores where you can buy all kinds of other different things. You just got to be smart sometimes if you want to buy some fertilizer or pesticide or some of these other prescription drugs. But they got drug stores with prescription drugs. They got drug stores with all kinds of other drugs that are not prescription that you can buy there. All of them much more dangerous than cannabis. None of them criminalized and stigmatized and regulated to the outside where you can't even have a proper store to go and get your medical needs looked after with cannabis, this medicine that's been that way for thousands of years. It is really an amazing story that's underway here, and it looks like we're going to go into another year where maybe in this season of the THC show we can wrap all these loose ends up and have a finale. And and it's going to be a good story because I only would like to tell a good story. So I'm going to try my very best to make sure that it's a happy ending and that we're all happy with how that goes. And what it is this quest is at the very forefront of this quest is of course the journey of the CSP, which after 3.5 years of operation in a collaboration with Van Du, formed a collaboration with the Healing Wave because the city said they would support us in a storefront, and that was going to require paying rent and staff and many other things. So this new part of the journey of the CSP began where we were operating on a daily basis low-cost cannabis as well as no-cost cannabis. And we learned from that there was a whole other demographic of people besides the ones that had lined up to be part of the program and get cannabis edibles for free that needed discreet access through a low-barrier cannabis store. And so now our fight has increased to protect those people as well, because the government's position is that people can't get access to the high-dose edibles without a doctor on board, and many people are just not able, and many people are not willing to do that, and it's very wrong for a democratically elected group of public servants to decide that they can just eliminate access for those people that won't comply or can't comply, because in Canada there's a whole bunch of people that cannot get a doctor. It's not just that they don't want one, although that's a huge demographic of people as well. So that's our fight, and the journey once we opened the store resulted in a city that said they would support us, but then said after the federal government, and a federal government who said we'll try to do it in a timely fashion, but then certainly hasn't after well over 2 years and 4 months of our application being before them. And in the meantime, unable to stop what we're doing, because the people that we've been dealing with now for almost 6 years, many of them are still here after 6 years, and those that have come since to join the family are just that. They're people that have become our family. We're here every day, 7 days a week, open 8 hours a day, but I'm on the block all the time here. And, I know all of these people, and a government, in some ivory tower back east on behalf of a bunch of rich billionaires who hasn't even come to have a look at what we're doing here to understand how profound it really is. They think that they should be able to penalize me to the point of making me stop what we're doing, when in all good conscience I could never stop without having to be dragged away, because, what would you do if you felt like you were a leader in a population, in a family of people, and they were about to be harmed in serious ways, and you've been told you can't help them and you're not allowed to help them? Well, I know what this Papa Bear is going to do, and that's whatever it is I have to do to maintain the help that we've been giving these people, because we started this, and I'm not about to just stop doing it because some government wants to make a whole bunch of money off of all of us on cannabis when they shouldn't. And it really is almost as simple as all of that. So we were evicted from the store until we could get that license from Health Canada. We've since been operating for the most part out of RVs, over 2 years of being in an RV parked right to the right of us out front here, and we haven't moved since then. We've had to swap RVs because of an incident which you know about. We had to survive under tents for a couple of different times. One a police raid, the other one, what was the other one? I forget. Oh, because we didn't have the RV anymore.
Yeah, because they towed it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
They towed it.
Well, it was all
Yeah,
burned up.
yeah. No, but the raid was first, and then they towed it, so you're in the tent then, and then the
Yes.
burning brought you back to the tent.
Yeah, the first one was the raid, and the
Yes.
second one was the burned RV,
Yeah.
and you know, so we will continue, and this show will continue. We'll continue to update you on what's going on with our journey through the courts now, and that should be very interesting in this upcoming season of the THC Show, as we see what the courts have for us. Glenn, we are going to go outside just for a minute.
Okay.
Just for a minute, because
All right, we're going to go outside.
I'll try to wrap it up real quick. I know we went overtime today. That's the first show of the year. We probably filled in for a couple other shows where we went a little bit less, but it wasn't on purpose. It was just because
I don't mind.
Things we feel we need to talk about.
Got to have our weather report, right?
We gotta have our almost weekly weather report here. We missed 1 week, and boy, was that ever a week to miss! Because 2 weeks ago, if we'd have done it, you would have seen just mountains of snow, and everybody just bundled right up, because except for the girls still have bare legs throughout it all.
We saw a little bit of the snow during the Tubes and Dubes video.
Yeah.
Yes.
We did get that going
Yep,
on.
I did,
as
yeah.
well. I don't know what that is. Women are much tougher than men, and that's proven every winter when I'm out here with 3 pairs of pants on and still shivering, and there's girls walking by with ladies with no, doesn't even look like they got pantyhose on. It's bare legs. But in any case, that's a whole other story. It's nice here. It was a nice day. It's quite a bit milder. It is a little cold and crispy. It's been in the air all day as well. We are in what's supposed to be winter.
Moon's right there. There it is.
Right. And so
Let's go.
that's our weather report. It's dry enough, although it's been raining. The streets are wet. It's on and off. It's a typical Vancouver winter at this point. So this is Weedabago, whatever you want to call it, and the legend continues, I guess. We did have some problems on New Year's Eve. In the morning, I woke up to find the front window has been smashed out, so now we don't have a front window there. We put up a sign at night that says there's nothing to steal in this RV. Please stay out, and smile, you're on camera, because at least we got that going on.
And the new signs.
This is the back door of the RV, where we deal with people that are part of the program. They can come, and every 4 days they get 420 milligrams of their choice from all the things that were donated for free, and that's how we do that. I want to give a shout out to the other cannabis substitution programs that are affiliated with us. The Halifax East Coast Cannabis Substitution Program. Chris continues to do an amazing job of satisfying most of the needs of that community as they become very familiar with where to line up and get what they need. And that's been going on for over 2 years now. Thanks, New Year.
It's all right. That's all right. You're good.
We're good. I do some of my best work in the dark anyway.
It's because we went off the Wi-Fi.
For radio.
Yeah.
But and to William Hicks, who took over from Mary McCarty in London, Ontario. There, these things require support. If you're in those areas, or if you can help out those cannabis substitution programs, please do. Mary's still helping us here in Vancouver, all the way from Winnipeg. I guess once a cannabis substitution program baker, always a cannabis substitute in your heart anyway. And for everybody else that's trying to get things done out there, to help with the situation, to try to make sure that the people that need it the most, the poor people and the sick people, in our case the people that are suffering addiction, that they get an access to cannabis that is easy and works for them, and doesn't protect interests of rich people who unethically think that they should just capitalize on an industry that was built in prohibition, and we can't accept that, and we won't accept that. So anyway, thank you all for just because the show ran late, I'm not going to. George, we're not coming in today. I ran the show late, had too much to say, but maybe next week we'll catch up with the crew in there. I think next week we're going to have a surprise for you as well. I'll leave it at that. I always like to end on a cliffhanger. So it's a new year. Let's make the best of it. Let's try to look on the bright side and make everything as bright as we can with what we do. Let's be positive sparks in the world. Let's try to take a bad situation and make it better. All of those things, because that's what we should do as humans. That's our humanity. That's what makes life great. That's what gives you the energy and the feelings that you really are looking for as a human being. When you're giving, you're getting. There's no question about it. Let's have a great year of giving back, of making the world a better place, of being kind to all the people around you, because those that are hardest to be kind to are the ones that need it the most, and we all need it. Hug your loved ones. Every day is precious. Be kind to yourself. And most importantly, I guess I'm never going to stop saying it, because I think it is the most important thing. Have as much fun as you can making the world a better place. We'll see you next week.